Francisco. I know it is an even year, but I'm just here to say congratulations. First of all, Elaine, congratulations to you and the entire Port team for all of your hard work, and to Larry, to you and your team and the San Francisco Giants for all of your hard work. This is really emblematic of the best of a collective planning process that we have here in the city of San Francisco. This is a city agency willing to be creative with a ton of support and a willing and engaged local partner in the Giants. To really come here to celebrate this today. But it's because of the Port and the Giants and their hard work that we are really here today celebrating what is going to be an amazing project. And as you think about this project itself, 21 acres is going to be redone, 1,500 new housing units, 40% that are affordable. And again, congratulations to Supervisor Kim on her hard work on making that happen. 8 acres of new open space. You know, we're going to have now teachers and nurses and firefighters and police officers living there. Our transitional age youth are going to be living there. This is a big deal for the city of San Francisco and really a huge part of what Mayor Lee was pushing for and all of the new housing units, both market rate and affordable, that he has been pushing for as mayor. And also transportation improvements. You think about the T3 line, the $40 million that's going to go in there, the new Mission Bay Ferry Terminal, which is going to be an amazing resource for the neighborhood, as well as workforce development. $1 million for workforce development to make sure that we have the children that are growing up in our neighborhoods, that they can come and work on our neighborhoods and they're ready for the job force and the job skills that they need moving forward. So I'm just here to say congratulations to everybody. A number of people to additionally thank. First of all, mention the Giants and the Port. I do want to thank the entire Board of Supervisors and President Breed for all their work. A huge thanks to Assemblymember David Chu for his hard work in state legislation that he pushed forward that allowed it to happen. Other city departments, to Todd Rufo and your department, where are you, Todd, right here, to John Ram and planning, Ed Riskin and our MTA, as well as Muhammad Nuru and DBW. This was really a collective effort from the city family. And as Elaine mentioned, a huge thanks to our now Lieutenant Governor, Gavin Newsom, who as mayor worked on this for a number of years, and also especially, I think, in closing, to our late Mayor Ed Lee, who worked very, very hard on this for his entire time in office. And I just think he would be very proud of being here today. So congratulations, everyone.
Well, thank you, Elaine, and thank you, Mayor Farrell. I'm Larry Baer from the Giants, and I have to say this is truly an exciting day for this organization. As has been mentioned, it was a decade in the making. I think actually a little north of a decade, 11 or 12 years. I was just sitting here thinking, you know, nobody on the Giants roster right now was actually on the roster when we started this project. I believe Bruce Bochy was a rookie manager at the time for the Giants. And, but really valuable, important projects are worth taking the time and being very carefully done. And I have to, there's a number of people we want to thank because they led with their hearts in making this project happen. They understood the vision, saw the vision, and led with their hearts. It's really a profound statement when a mixed-use project can garner 74% of the voters' support in this community, which was the case in the election 2 years ago, and unanimous support from every commission and every board. And again, many of you who we will talk about were part of that, of garnering that support and leading. Without the folks that we're going to mention today, this would not have happened. It would not have been possible. It would not have been able to come together. What we're really most proud of is the creation, taking a surface parking lot, what we used to characterize as a windswept surface parking lot, and creating a new dynamic neighborhood from that parking lot, which we believe will serve as a central gathering place, a central hub for the surrounding community, for the Mission Bay community. The partnership grew upon the creativity and expertise of thousands of creative people, dedicated people in this planning process, including our neighbors, which we will talk about. So leading off the thank yous, I'd like to thank the project team who worked very hard, diligently, long hours, lending their expertise in urban planning, engineering, architecture, sustainability, finance, legal work to create this top-notch project that meets the values of our community. Mention the neighbors and the community-based organizations. Many are here in the audience today. They've been a voice for the project from the very beginning and will continue to be part of the legacy. Now, the city departments. The city departments have been quite amazing, led by the Port of San Francisco, the Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development, the City Attorney's Office, the Planning Department, DPW, MTA, all unbelievably collaborative in their work with us through this long process. I want to specifically acknowledge Port Director Elaine Forbes for her amazing work in helping bring this project to fruition. Commission President Kim Brandon, where is Kim? So Kim Brandon, unlike any of the Giants players or Bruce Bochy, did precede this project. Kim Brandon has been, and I just did a fact check because I don't want any fake news here, 20 years on the San Francisco Port Commission, and look at all the progress and look what's happened at the port through her 2 decades of service. Thank you, Kim, for all your service. And finally, the city's leadership I'd like to talk about. A heartfelt thank you to our district supervisor, Jane Kim, who authored the Mission Rock legislation and has taken a personal interest in this project from day one. Huge thanks to Board President London Breed for her longtime support of Mission Rock and for keeping our project on track during crucial moments. Thank you to David Chu for spearheading the state legislation, as Mayor Farrell mentioned, that enabled us to develop this innovative project. And finally, I want to acknowledge our friend, our late Mayor Ed Lee. Very bittersweet here without him. One of the project's biggest supporters, was with us from day one. We are eternally grateful for his leadership and support, and we miss him every day. Thank you, Mayor Farrell, for making this historic moment for Mission Rock come true. We are thrilled to move closer to the groundbreaking and closer to realizing the vision of all of us here for this project. A decade in the making, and now the fun begins. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. My name is London Breed. I'm president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and I am so excited to be here today. As a former San Francisco Redevelopment Agency commissioner, I know how long these projects, these major infill projects can take. But looking at Mission Bay and looking at what we're doing with the shipyard and watching as this entire neighborhood change and provides more businesses, more housing, more parks, this is really a crown jewel for this particular area, and I just want to thank the Giants for investing in this project, for working with the city, for working with the port. Elaine, you're an amazing leader, and I also got to thank Kimberly Brandon and the members of the Port Commission who spend countless hours listening to public comment, arguing over the details, getting the criticism, and look at what we have here today. An amazing project that is doing something that we need to do all over the city and county of San Francisco. Provide 40% affordable housing for low, moderate, and middle income families in San Francisco. How exciting is that? People who make up to 150% AMI, and when we think about it, we think, well, that's a lot of money, and it's not a lot of money here in San Francisco. Those families still can't afford market rate housing in San Francisco. It includes some of the city employees. It includes some of the ballpark workers. I want to see those ballpark workers walking right across from their housing in that parking lot into the ballpark. Is that a promise? Yes. the members of Local 2 and the folks who make San Francisco such a great place. So this is a wonderful day, and I'm excited, and I'm grateful to my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, including Mayor Farrell, and I see Supervisor Yee as well as Supervisor Kim, who will be speaking in a minute, and Supervisor Jeff Sheehy. We all care so deeply about making San Francisco such a wonderful place for each and every one of us, providing more housing, providing spaces like this on the waterfront that are going to be beautiful and accessible to so many with its parks and everything else is going to be something that is going to be truly amazing for the city and county of San Francisco, and I look forward to that. Thank you to all the community activists and the folks who are part of the neighborhood. I know Sonny Swartz has been a part of this project from day one. Here we are, finally, 10 years later. Now let's try to make sure some of the future projects don't take this long. Thank you all so much.
So good afternoon, and it is really incredibly exciting to be here today after the years, as Larry and Mayor Mark Farrell have mentioned, that have gone into making this project a reality. You know, the portion of the project that I'm obviously the proudest of is that this is the first project in San Francisco that is committed to a record percentage of 40% affordable and middle-income housing. And I really want to thank the Giants for stepping up and being a leader for San Francisco. This is our home team, and they demonstrated their commitment to San Franciscans by saying that we are going to make sure that San Franciscans get to live by our team, by our ballpark, and root for us when we make it to the championships. But I just want to say that a lot of work went into that process. And this is, I mean, I should probably ask someone this. This is really one of the first projects that didn't use redevelopment that built such a large percentage of units for middle-income housing. As President Breed mentioned, households that make between $80,000 and $150,000 a year. And I want to recognize the Teachers Union, the Council of Community Housing Organizations, Bishop and South of Market Community Action Network, and Local 2 that really helped us, I mean, just literally number by number over hours in the course of the night, craft a compromise that would pencil out. And of course, I want to recognize the port and the city for sharing the value that would be generated by this land to build more housing for our residents. And I think that that is important to mention. This is a partnership between the city and the Giants, and we are sharing that value to make sure that our residents can live here. I wanted to also take a moment to thank our community residents who are also here, who have worked on the sidelines of this to ensure that this is a neighborhood that they want to be a part of. So I see Corinne Woods, the chair of Mission Bay Citizens Advisory Committee. Everyone clearly knows her here. Sonny Swartz. Alice Rogers, part of the South Beach Rincon Hill Mission Bay Neighborhood Association. Bruce Agid, also a member of the organization. And Katie Lydell, who is not here, chairs the organization as well. I talked a lot about the affordable housing, but this is a mixed-use development project that is going to provide retail and small businesses, amenity, open space, the type of neighborhood that is incredibly exciting to move to, but also for our residents who have been there for a very long time, additional amenities that we greatly need for the Mission Bay neighborhood. Finally, I just want to thank the city for all of your work. And actually, the hard work begins now. We got to make sure we can get that infrastructure in the ground so those thousands of units of housing that the city sorely need can get built. Thank you, everyone, for making this a home run for San Francisco.
Thank you to everyone who spoke today. I understand now we have the honor of signing this legislation. Mr. Mayor and Larry Baer, President Breed.
Congratulations, everyone.
San Francisco Planning works to preserve and enhance our city while helping shape our built environment. We do this in a variety of ways. We develop citywide, area, and neighborhood plans that help guide other city departments and developers on issues such as housing, transportation, open space, land use, urban design, and a variety of other matters related to the physical urban environment. Planning projects may also include implementing a new regulation or code change, or designing specific improvements such as plazas, streets, or parks. Projects can also be as broad as providing an overall vision for the city in general or a particular neighborhood. These planning efforts typically include some level of public involvement, depending on the type of project. You may simply choose to be informed of a new law or requirement that will soon take effect, or be actively involved in the process of shaping a final plan or improvement.
That's what people, I think, are really, really troubled by, is their loss of what they perceive to be their mid-block rear yard open space.
One way to become more involved is by attending community meetings. Community meetings give you and your neighbors an opportunity to learn more about planning efforts in the city and to participate directly in future neighborhood improvements. Meetings often take the form of open houses, focus groups, workshops, or other creative formats that allow you and your neighbors to make comments and suggestions, provide feedback, and ask questions. The best way to ensure you will be alerted of community meetings in your neighborhood from the planning department is to sign up for project notifications on our website. By signing up, you will also receive project notifications about existing projects. You can request notifications based on a specific neighborhood, topic, or project type. If you require language assistance or a disability accommodation, please call or email us 72 hours before the event. After a community event, staff will summarize the input received from the attendees and publish the results on the project webpage. Planners may then make modifications to the plans based on feedback from the public events. For example, the feedback you provide may change how a street corridor will look down the road, or what policies should be in place for a neighborhood area plan. To get started in playing a role in planning for your neighborhood, or to learn more about upcoming projects and events, visit the Plans and Programs page of our website. Your feedback and participation is important to us. Not everyone takes time to participate, so you should be proud of taking an active part in matters that affect our city.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
I have not.
This is my chair.
Oh, because Jane's supposed to be. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Land Use Committee meeting of March 12th, 2018. I'm Katie Tang, chair of this committee. To my left is Supervisor Afsha Safai. Supervisor Jane Kim will not be joining us today, and we are also joined by Supervisor Aaron Peskin. Our clerk is Sean Carroll, and from SFGov TV, we'd like to thank Jim Smith and Samuel Williams. Mr. Clerk, are there any announcements?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Please make sure to silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Completed speaker cards and copies of any documents to be included as part of the file should be submitted to the clerk. Items acted upon today will appear on the March 20th, 2018 Board of Supervisors agenda unless otherwise stated.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Can we please call item 1?
Agenda item number 1 is a resolution authorizing the Director of Real Estate to file a declaration of restrictions with the Assessor Recorder against the property designated as Assessor's Parcel Block Number 2643, Lot Numbers 17 and 23, known as Twin Peaks Open Space, in support of a Habitat Conservation Fund grant from the California Department of Parks and Recreation, and providing that the use restrictions contained in the Habitat Conservation Fund grant agreement will be covenants, conditions, and restrictions on the use of the properties until June 30th, 2033. We also have received your committee report request memo for this item, and it is on file.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think we have a representative from Rec and Park Department to present on this item.
Yes, good morning, committee members. Good afternoon. My name is Tony Moran. I am the grant manager for the Recreation and Park Capital Planning Division, and the item you're considering is a resolution authorizing the Director of Real Estate to file a declaration of restrictions on Lots 17 and 23 on parcel 2643 in the Twin Peaks open space. That portion of open space had some trail improvements funded by the Habitat Conservation Fund grant, which is administered by the California State Parks Department. All of the State Parks Department grants now require that we file deed restrictions on the property to assure that when we make improvements with state funds that we maintain and operate them for a period of 20 years. So basically, the covenants and the agreements on this declaration of restriction will state that these parcels, 17 and 23, lots 17 and 23, will remain open for public recreation space, recreation use for a period of 20 years. This time frame is also consistent with the improvements that were made on the property. To document this agreement, this agreement with the state, we are required to file the declaration of restriction, which outlines the parcels that are protected and includes the grant agreement. And the purpose is in the case that those parcels are transferred to another owner, which is not likely going to happen, but if that were to occur, that new owner would know that they needed to maintain and operate those parcels for public use. So basically, that's my presentation on behalf of the Recreation and Parks Department.
Thank you very much for that. And I know that this board took some action items on this particular project in the past before as well. So colleagues, do we have any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to public comment on item 1. Any members of the public who wish to speak, please come on up. Hello, Ms. Werfel.
Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Werfel, bringing to your attention today a land use problem with accepting state grant money that requires CCRs. You may not realize that your own grant resolution information form does not have a question that specifically asks about land use requirements for accepting the grant. So the board does not focus on the ramifications of the land use restrictions on other city departments that may also have jurisdiction or need to use the restricted lands. Yes, on page 2, at the tippy top of the page, on question 12, it does ask if there are any other significant grant requirements or comments. This item is generally not answered, but I think putting CCRs on city property is a big deal. So much so that the acknowledgement of this issue deserves its own question on page 1 of your form so it is not overlooked. Let me explain how serious this issue is. The CCR's language of the grant contract, section 3, general provisions, page 7, use of facilities state, item 6, the grantee agrees to use the property restored under the this agreement only for purposes of the grant, and no other use or disposition shall be permitted except as authorized by a specific act of the legislature of the state of California. In 2014, the board put restrictions on Glen Park's land in Resolution 15214 to satisfy accepting the grant, but there's a big problem that the city is now stuck with. Recon Park did not have sole jurisdiction over this property to agree to the grant conditions. The SFPUC and the Department of Public Works both have jurisdictions there. Now they are barred for 20 years from using this land for their legitimate city purposes by virtue of the CCRs without getting the legislator's approval. Please amend your form so that the city does not accept money that can compromise the mission of other city departments. Before you approve any land restrictions, you must be sure that all affected departments have signed off in writing that they approve for the CCRs. This is what your page 2 looks like. This is where it talks at the very top. Nobody ever fills in the form because they don't know it's there. Thank you. I would like you to put this on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public who wish to comment on item number 1? Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed. Colleague, since I guess Supervisor Safai is the only one who's the other committee member, can we get a motion on item number 1? Oh. Did you have something else? Okay. Supervisor Safai, can we get a motion?
Oh, yeah, motion to approve.
With recommendation? Did you have something else to add, Ms. Moran?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought that there was a question.
Okay. Can we get a motion with a committee report, please?
Motion to approve with a committee report.
All right, we'll do that without objection. Item number 2, please.
Agenda item number 2 is a resolution opposing California State Senate Bill 827, authored by Senator Scott Wiener, which would significantly limit San Francisco's local ability to recapture critical public value of development projects citywide and override local planning processes.
Thank you. And the sponsor of this resolution is here today, Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Supervisor Safai, to the individuals who've come down here today. They say that all politics is local politics, and that in San Francisco, all local politics are about land use because of the constraints of this 7-by-7-mile city. This is a very, very important piece of legislation, unlike other resolutions that or other state bills that we take a position on that generally go to the adoption without committee reference calendar. I thought it was important to send this to committee so that we could all have a robust discussion. And I really wanted to create a space for a public discussion. I realize, and I am an unabashed opponent of the legislation as it's currently crafted, but I think it's important to create a space to have this dialogue and this debate, because this is a piece of state law that, while it may look on its surface is about zoning regulations in the state of California, if you look at it carefully, and I'll hold this up, disproportionately impacts one city and county, which is the city and county of San Francisco. And while it is true that the state is expanding in population and that housing is an acute need and crisis throughout the state of California, and that we all need to take our fair share of that housing, particularly affordable housing, this bill is really, in many ways, a San Francisco bill. So I think it's very important that we all have this discussion here and that the Board of Supervisors makes its position on our former colleague, then Supervisor Scott Wiener, now State Senator Scott Wiener's Senate Bill 827. And I say that in the context of somebody who's been on and off the board, getting on to 20 years, 18 years, where we have wrestled repeatedly with the very difficult issues of housing, and particularly affordable housing, in many manifestations. My colleague, the chair of this committee, Supervisor Tang, pioneered, and after 2 years of effort, dealt with a 1979 era vintage law, the state bonus density law, and conformed it to San Francisco's unique situation with Home SF. Myself and former Supervisor Mark Farrell worked together and collaborated on and had a successful passage of legislation around enabling and encouraging accessory dwelling units. And despite what people heard last week, that only 20 of them have been built, that is absolutely untrue. 1,600 of them have been built. We were the city that pioneered inclusionary housing under my then colleague, Supervisor Mark Leno's leadership. And last year, actually in 2016 and later in 2017, passed some of the most ambitious on-site affordable housing laws in the United States of America. We have pioneered general obligation bonds to deal with the issue of affordable housing. San Francisco has exceeded the Bay Area and Northern California relative to the production of housing at all levels. Unfortunately, we exceed at the luxury housing level, but we do better than any of our neighbors at the low, very low, and moderate income levels. So I look at this bill and I'm deeply disturbed because one thing that San Francisco learned and has learned from is the decisions of displacement. We learned that in the International Hotel. We learned that in the A2 and redevelopment and the legacy of Justin Herman, which we have addressed symbolically relative to names and places. And yet, this bill, Senate Bill 827, puts us on the precipice, and admittedly so, of getting back into the policy making of displacement and the ruining of lives. And I don't say that lightly, because I understand and I acknowledge that supply is part of the issue, and as a supervisor, maintaining the affordable housing that we have is also an issue, whether it's the Academy of Art gobbling up SRO hotels for student dormitories, whether it's gentrification, whether it's TICs, whether it's speculative behavior. Those are all things that we have to also address at the same time that we add supply. And it's not any supply, it is affordable supply for people who live and work in the city and county of San Francisco. So I want to have this conversation today, and I also want to acknowledge that Senator Wiener has made a number of amendments to Senate Bill 827. Those amendments have recently been published. I also want to say that San Francisco has learned over time that when we enter into the planning process, when this committee and predecessors to this committee approve area plans and neighborhood plans that include upzoning, that we at the dawn of the 21st century have learned one profound lesson, which is that when the city or a public agency confers benefit on a landowner, we have an obligation, a responsibility to recapture that value for the good of the public. What does that mean? Well, that means investment in public transit. That means investment in affordable housing. That means investment in complete neighborhoods. And whether it's the Central SOMA plan, which actually attempts to do that and to derive that value recapture for a host of public benefits, what Senate Bill 827 does not do, what Home SF actually did do, is recapture that value. If we are going to use major transit hubs, then we are going to continue to burden our public transit infrastructure. Then, if we are taking a building that or a property that right now can be zoned up to 55 feet and we almost double that zoning capacity, this is not a giveaway to developers. This is conferring massive value on property owners, and we must recapture that value. So I want to hear from the public today. I understand that there are opponents and proponents of this. I am in receipt of the letter that is signed by many technology and gig companies, albeit some of the biggest ones, including Apple, did not sign on. And I don't want to politicize this, but I do note that Ron Conway is a prominent signatory to that letter supporting Senate Bill 827. And I understand that those companies feel that they have, and indeed they do have, a moral obligation to take care of the impacts that the tech economy is bringing to San Francisco. But I think that, colleagues, there is a better, more sophisticated way to do that. And then let me leave before we turn this over to you, Madam Chair, and the public, to hear from the public. There is also one profound legal notion in the state of California, which is the notion that cities and counties bring about their own destiny. And there is no better place than around land use. Now, we just had a bill, Senate Bill 182, that unfortunately was passed by the state legislature and signed into law, which prevented this city and county and municipalities across the state from charging a business license to transportation network companies, read Lyft and Uber. And our city attorney, Dennis Herrera, asserted our independent constitutional charter authority, and we brought suit against Senate Bill 182 because that is a sovereign right of the city and county of San Francisco. And should Senate Bill 827 not be significantly amended or die in the California state legislature, I would respectfully suggest to our city attorney and my colleagues that we follow the same route as Senate Bill 182.
Thank you.
I do
Just
have
as
one
a
other thing.
reminder
I do
to the
have
audience.
one
sorry.
other. I'm
Quick
sorry, Madam Chair.
reminder to the audience to use your spirit fingers if you feel inclined to either express support or opposition. Thank you.
I do have one other thing to say, and I have the honor to serve on the state of California's Coastal Commission, and I spent 3 days last week in Southern California at the Coastal Commission meeting, and was amazed that my colleagues, half of whom of that 12-member body hail from the southern portion of the state of California, pointed out to me that Senate Bill 827 disproportionately impacts lower-income communities and communities of color. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues said, "This is urban renewal 2.0," and then she said to me, "How dare your senator rezone Compton, California?" And that I was not thinking about it in that lens, because I was thinking about it relative to 96% of San Francisco, but I also wanted to express that because it's not just about San Francisco. But when you look at the map that I just held up, if this is about having more suburban communities do their fair share, when you look down to San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, it is a thin little ribbon along the 101 corridor. This is not about density equity. This is actually a backdoor attempt to rezone San Francisco. And I say that as somebody who's very proud of a lot of the rezoning efforts, controversial though they may be, where we're building thousands of units of housing on the waterfront and at Bayview Hunters Point and soon at Treasure Island and at Mission Rock and at Pier 70. We're cranking it out. We're doing it. Supervisor Tang, as I said earlier, did Home SF. Former Supervisor Farrell and myself did accessory dwelling units. So it's not as though we have our heads buried in the sand. And with that, I hand it over to Chair Tang.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. And I would say that there are many points in your comments that I actually do agree with, but I do also want to commend Senator Scott Wiener because on his time as a member of the Board of Supervisors, as well as thank you. I know that you are very riled up, but please listen to the rest of what I actually have to say. Okay, so on his time as a member of this Board of Supervisors, I know that Supervisor Wiener was a huge proponent of trying to create more affordable housing here in San Francisco, was a huge supporter of Home SF, which I had worked on, which Supervisor Peskin mentioned as well. And now as a state senator, I do understand and appreciate his leadership for I think really, as in the previous comments made, trying to have other cities do their fair share in terms of building affordable housing, especially as we bear the brunt of a lot of the transportation back and forth between their job opportunities here, people living elsewhere, vice versa. So I do think that we need to ask other cities to rise to the occasion as well. But with that said, we spent, like was said, 2 years or more on Home SF, and that in itself was controversial at the time when we began. Because yes, there were some height limit increases proposed. However, there was a cap. There were also a lot of strings attached to this voluntary program, meaning that you had to build a certain percentage of affordable housing. You had to build certain unit sizes so that there could be family-size units and not so many studios and one-bedrooms being built in the city. We wanted to make sure that small businesses were protected, that tenants living in existing housing were protected. All those protections are not there as part of this bill, and those are some of the issues that I do have with SB 827. So after public comment, I do have some amendments that I'm proposing to the resolution. And of course, we'll continue this dialogue with Senator Wiener, but because there are so many people here at public comment, I'm going to call them up first, unless Supervisor Safai has some comments. And because there are so many and we may have a quorum issue, I'm going to ask that public comment be limited to 1 minute each. Okay? Unless you would like to not comment at all, so because we may have a quorum issue. I just wanted to give you a heads up. So public comment will be at 1 minute each. Thank you. So with that, public comment is here. I have some cards: George Whitting, Tess Wellborn, Ann Harvey, Patricia Voy, Richard Frisbee, Monica Collins. Please come on up if I've called your name, and I will call more afterwards.
San Francisco is the second densest city in the nation. And this legislation proposed by Scott Wiener would penalize a few cities, not the suburbs, who encourage commercial and do not build housing. Both bills were developed by developers and speculators, and we need to, as a board of supervisors representing San Franciscans, oppose this, dump it, and start fresh.
Marina Calhallo, Neighbors Emergence and PEDS oppose this for the following reasons. Number one, it's a ruse concerning housing. Number two, until you straighten out the issues concerning affordable housing plans, this is a real ruse. There are numbers of buildings that have been built they pay the money and have all high-end housing instead of the money going to the low-income projects. And I think that there are hundreds of buildings that have not paid into the fund. Number three is I'm tired of ruses. We need to have legislation that is equitable. And I am tired of the wording of Scott Wiener's 824 as it is, and it has to be completely reworded in order to...
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I'm Ann Harvey. I'm speaking of myself, my husband, who's a professor at USF, and our two sons, who we raised in the city and grew up, born and raised, and still work here in the city. I was born in New York City. I grew up in Philadelphia, went to school in Boston. I know all these cities, came to Berkeley and San Francisco, and it was beautiful. The one thing I found bad about San Francisco was the Fontana. But I grew up, and I was in Boston, and a student at Harvard. Okay.
Oh, no, you have 30 seconds left,
30
ma'am.
seconds more?
Mr. Clerk, if we could reset the clock due to the confusion to 25 seconds. Or, sorry, I think it was 28.
It was the time of the big unrest in Berkeley. I thought it was like urban warfare out here. I was so surprised when I got here, and it was so bucolic in Berkeley and Stanford. I couldn't believe it. And then we moved to San Francisco, and we just loved it, and we stayed here. We've never considered moving anywhere else, and I hate to see this town turned into a place like New York City. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call a couple more speaker cards. David Paul, Jerry Dratler, I think Paul Weber, Diane Smith, and Mary McNamara.
Oh, okay. May I?
Yes.
Finally, okay. I'm George Wooding, President of the Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods. Please support and pass the proposed resolution of the board in opposition to the bill. Thank you, Aaron Peskin, as the City of Los Angeles and others appear to have done or are doing. I'd like to devote the rest of my time to a moment of silence for Scott Wiener's attempt to kill the character and the death of our neighborhoods. So please use my last 30 seconds for silence.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wooding. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. I'm from San Francisco, and thank you for not rolling your eyes. Change is good, but that implies improvement, not just any old change, not hyperdevelopment. I think it was James Baldwin who called redevelopment the Negro Removal Act. And what happened in the Fillmore is happening in OMI, except they're not using the crude device of eminent domain. And, you have opportunistic loans, foreclosures, prices are zooming. I mean, can I even afford to stay in the city? Anyway, go to Paris. Why is it beautiful? Because they don't allow this cluster mess. Now go to the Paris suburbs. I used to live there. They're horrible. They're huge windswept towers, dense clusters. Everyone hates them. The French hate them. The city parents knew you don't allow this sort of thing in city limits if you want a beautiful, prosperous tourist city. I am in favor of affordable housing, but, this is not Atlanta.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Overhead, please.
SF TV, overhead.
Point out what our good, well, I think that makes a point. Good afternoon, Supervisors. I am Richard Frisbee, and I oppose State Bill 827. Will Rogers said this: every time a politician makes a joke, it becomes a law. Every time he makes a law, it becomes a joke. A very, very bad joke for San Francisco. As the senior elected officials of San Francisco, it would be a travesty for you to deliberately disenfranchise your constituents of their rights to have a say in the local use decisions within their communities. SB 827 is a poison pill with respect to local land use input and decision making. It eliminates local control, knowledge, history, custom, culture, and standards. Why should we support ballot initiatives in June and November proposed by supervisors who fail to support a broad consensus of San Franciscans? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
My name is Jerry Dratler. It's clear that the demand for San Francisco housing exceeds supply. Excess demand is driving up the cost of housing and gentrifying the city. San Francisco currently ranks 21st on the list of incorporated places in the United States with a density of over 10,000 people per square mile. San Francisco has 18,679 people per square mile, or 6,266 per square kilometer. With 6,266 people per square kilometer, San Francisco is currently as dense as Hong Kong, denser than London, and equal to job-poor India. SB 827 is expected to increase the housing supply, but it's never been modeled. It's unclear how many people per square mile could be living in San Francisco. If the goal is to increase the number of people per square mile, it would make sense to determine how many people the existing infrastructure can support and where the increase in density should occur. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
May I have an overhead, please? Okay, my name is Diane Wesley Smith. Aaron Peskin for mayor. I mean, you here today. This is such an important issue. I am a 65-year-old senior citizen, soon to be 66 this year. Scott Weiner, what happened to you? What happened to you? We're so disappointed. We believed in him. We elected him. We thought he was going to do good. My beloved native city of San Francisco is continuing to grow and expand within our meager 49 square miles. My point, I disagree totally with SB 827 and the wording to override local planning process. We will not be denied the democratic process. We're talking about, we have voted many times and said what we wanted. Now we have height limits. We have the same issues again. So now they want to change our laws. We cannot have this. Ms. Tang, Supervisor Tang, I'm very encouraged by what you said about the revisions, because this is so broken. It needs to be fixed.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is David Paul. I wanted to clarify, we're not voting on SB 8 Weiner's bill, we're voting on Peskin's resolution to allow San Francisco to have a say. And I think the main point we really should concentrate on is the basic principle of democracy, self-determination for our communities, and not fall into the trend that's happening nationwide if people really look, not just from the Trump administration, but in general, that privatize everything, privatize the roads, privatize our Social Security, privatize the parks, and not allow people to sue large corporations, let polluters pollute, and we don't have a say. And if you go ahead with this bill in Sacramento, you are falling into that trap of giving up our rights. And I expect the Planning Commission and the supervisors to respect the rights of the citizens of.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
My name is Mary McNamara, and I live in the outer Sunset, and I want to address the floor area ratios in this bill. I live in a typical Sunset District house. The floor area ratio is 0.36. Under this bill, it looks like it would be 3.5 or 4.5, or an FA, it would allow for 10,500 square feet. That's a 1,000% increase in density at 13,500 square feet on my little tiny lot. We really need to also think about the profound demolition that could occur. Also, it's very unclear how the Housing Accountability Act works in conjunction with this bill. And last but not least, the city of San Francisco upzoned 100,000 units in the 1990s, and thus repairing the damage of the downzoning from the 60s and 70s and 80s. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to call some more speaker cards here. Bruce Bowen, Rose Hilson, Janona Jonas, Alicia Berberich, Rita Agnese. Please come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Weber. I'm a resident of North Beach, and I'm here to just state my conclusions since we only have a minute. There is still time for you to act if you do so now. So I urge you to recommend that the board approve the resolution opposing 827, cause the city to deploy lobbyists and other representatives to seek the support of state legislatures in opposing 827, and finally cause the city to seek a judicial determination that there's not a compelling state interest in the need for market rate housing so as to provide developer bonuses, therefore, with no inclusionary housing in return, which the bill does, in a landlocked city such as San Francisco to warrant wrenching away what is normally an exclusive municipal affair. And thank you for the 1 minute. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Suffin. I am a resident of the Lower Haight. Please oppose SP Senate Bill 827. It's simply not what the citizens of San Francisco want or need.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Supervisors, we need your help. We need your help to protect us against SB 827. The bill is bad for California, but it is worse for San Francisco. Not only will it inflate the value of our already overpriced real estate, it does not in any way reflect the realities of San Francisco's transit problems, traffic patterns, infrastructure, or topography. The bill is based upon many bad assumptions, just like trickle-down economics is. Just one I'd like to highlight. Many studies have shown that development around transit can displace those who actually use transit. Without adequate protections to keep low-income tenants in their homes, transit-oriented development might as well be called transit rider displacement. Handing over our housing problems to big money, the state, and Scott Wiener to solve them is like handing over our transportation problems to Uber. The impact of SB 827 will be permanent and irreversible. Once the towers are here, they're here to stay. Once the state takes over our planning, we will never get it back. Thank you, and thank you to Supervisor Peskin for your comments.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Yes, supervisors, supporters of this bill will tell you that all the problems it will cause can be amended, and that's not necessarily true. Also, the problems are worth it because they will mean we have more affordable housing. That is a lie. If building newer, denser, and higher causes or will result in affordability, then why is Manhattan and Hong Kong not the cheapest places to live in this country or in this world? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to call a couple more speaker cards. Ann Boswell, Chris Bigelow, Krista Cotto, I think Ashley Wessinger, Greg, I apologize, I can't read some of this handwriting here, but Greg McHugh.
Hi, my name is Alicia Berberich, and one of the most positive aspects of San Francisco, besides the bridge, are all of our charming neighborhoods. And this initiative is threatening to destroy those neighborhoods, just as that picture showed with the sore thumb sticking up like we have with the Fontanas and a few other special buildings in San Francisco. I really feel that it's necessary for us to maintain control of our own initiatives, of our own building things that are happening here. Centralizing this is simply un-American, and it's usurping the power that is exactly the opposite of what the Founding Fathers wanted to provide and protect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello. I'm ill-prepared because I only found out about this last night, which is too bad because this room wouldn't hold all the people if they knew what was going on. So I'll speak from my heart. I was born here, and I can smell money and corruption. Simply. Real estate developers, low interest rates. And of course, they buy the rivers and everything the other fellow said. We need to keep control of our land. I think you should think about when you meet your maker if you pass this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Overhead, please. YIMBY authored SB 827 is an arbitrary upzoning scheme relying on street widths and other factors for huge height and density increases that circumvent proper and legislated local review under San Francisco's general plan, imparts bonus land value increases, and creates real estate pricing unattainable by the majority without guaranteeing any housing cost reduction at the expense of neighborhood livability in San Francisco. Trump-like SB 827 kills local control. SB 827 doesn't do all these bullet points that I have displayed on here. And also, the Jordan Park Improvement Association, under the leadership of Larry Costello, opposes 827, and the Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods also opposes 827 under a resolution. And so this is the little image I want to leave you with. And I turn in all this and include my First overhead under Sunshine, section 67.17 into the...
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Chris Bigelow, and I live in the Russian Hill neighborhood. Allowing many more uses on a property and removing restrictions on height and building mass will increase our already inflated land values astronomically. In a city where speculators grab every single fixer-upper that comes on the market, the last thing we need is to incentivize speculative behavior by upping the potential of these fixer properties. In today's market, a single-family fixer that goes for $1.5 million on average will yield 2 and at most 3 units to the developer. Imagine what it does to the price of land if the same fixer were to yield 10 units. What we need to guide development is a well-considered set of criteria capable of responding to the multidimensional context of our urban environment. In contrast, this bill is a blunt instrument. Supervisors, we live here and we are your constituents, not some special lobby in Sacramento. I urge you to support the resolution to oppose this bill.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm a native of San Francisco and a resident of Cow Hollow. Having lived here my whole life, I've watched the city go from a charming, wonderful neighborhood-centric city to a place where there's no parking, there are streets torn up, there are pits and holes in the streets. We've watched this city change and grow beyond its limits. And yes, housing is a problem in this city, but this bill, these two bills, are not the answer. And I ask you to look at who is supporting it in their suits and ties and not living in San Francisco, and then look at who is supporting it. Local people, local neighborhood people, people who care and have lived here for a long time or want to live here for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Okay, I'm Krista Lotto, and I have a queasy feeling in my stomach as I don't understand why San Francisco news agencies were told we weren't told sooner about the bill. I get the Chronicle each Sunday, and there was nothing in it. We had to scramble to run here. It feels like a slimy bill, and I'm sad to say, but it feels like Wiener cares more about lining the pockets of developers than he does the people of San Francisco, the laborers, teachers, nurses of the city. Many people like me who are poorer than most in San Francisco live near major transportation routes. Wieners are proposing to take away our freedom, our space, the air we breathe, our sunshine. Food will become more expensive, and it will be harder to live in my area. This bill is wrong. This bill is saying, let's put high-rises on Lombard Street. If this bill made sense to the people of San Francisco, Mayor Lee would have initiated it. Wiener is not looking at the people of San Francisco as evidence with this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call some more cards here. Catherine Howard, Kathy J., Dennis Moscovian, Dr. Lisa Fromer, Ozzie Rom. Please come on up.
Hi, my name is Greg Miller. I think the proposed Senate bill is atrocious public policy. The bill would essentially privatize and automate the planning process. It will place the power to radically transform the character of our communities in the hands of individual real estate developers and investors. Competitive pressures will make expected profit margins the primary criterion for urban planning. The combined impact of many individual business decisions is unlikely to lead to some ideal optimal outcome. Eventually, overbuilding and lower quality of life seem to me to be the likely outcome. And for those of you who doubt this assertion, I refer you to the performance of our largely unregulated banking industry in the course of the previous decade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Ashley Wessinger. I am the Vice President of the Marina Community Association. We strongly oppose this bill. I would like to say that I'm appalled by this bill. It is shocking that San Francisco, being such a unique city, would ever even not oppose this bill and that would be in favor of it. As we sit in these rooms today, in 50 years, half of us may not even be here, but these buildings will be here and this city will change. You have the power to leave this your legacy. Do you really want your legacy to have no longer have the neighbourhoods to be destroyed and for relationships to be destroyed by this bill. So I am urging you to go back to the drawing boards and figure out a better plan for this. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm Jackie Barshak, Cultural Action Network. So this Build, Baby, Build solution to California's housing woes is not working. And not only that, those who provide the solution are blaming you for those woes, claiming that you are resistant to new residential development. So Scott Wiener believes that the state should govern housing the way it governs education. Our planning department can set policy, but the state sets the ground rules. Now, where does that leave local control? SB 827 goes beyond slash and burn territory. So 827 would dramatically increase the city's population and the demand for services, police, fire, water, schools, transit, without providing funds to pay for the new services. And it lets the state off the hook for funding these services because
Thank you very much. It's 1 minute today because we have quite a bit of public comment and potential quorum issues.
Hi, I'm
Thank you.
Kathy Jay. I've lived in California for 22 years, and I firmly oppose SB 27 and SB 828. If we allow the state to dictate that developers can build what they want in our cities, the reality is you're creating a model for higher developer income, not more affordable housing. It's not true that the more housing you build, the more affordable it becomes. As others have mentioned, look at Hong Kong, where housing is 18 times over the median income and is the most crowded city in the world at a density of 67,000 per square mile. And rental apartment is $3,500 a month, compared to San Francisco as of 2016 was $18,000 per square mile. Why can't we learn from others' failures? I'm asking you to reject this irresponsible legislation. It's not sound legislation and has no basis in reality, no matter how you amend it. This will only increase economic and cultural unrest statewide by upending every local plan that now contributes to the housing allocation requirements. Thank you.
Supervisors, my name is Dennis Moscofian. I urge you to support the resolution opposing SB 827. SB 827 is a final solution for displacing the remaining populations of color, poor, working class, middle class, and elderly. But it masquerades as a housing plan. It's not a housing plan. It is a displacement plan to make room for higher income gentry and high profit speculation and development. ABAG made sure that the suburban counties with land would not have to share the burden of providing housing for their workforce. Tech is building campuses bigger than the Pentagon, but next to no housing. 827 could have come out of the Trump administration as another measure to support the housing industry, like the measures proposed to open public lands to extraction to help the extractive industries. So for whom is 827 written? Who wins? Who loses? The resolution 827 opposing it is correct. It's on the side of the people.
Catherine Howard, Sierra Club. The Sierra Club opposes SB 827. SB 827 interacts with SB 35 to preclude public health and environmental protections and review under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. The 1970 CEQA Act is one of the foundational environmental laws in California. It has been used to help cut climate pollution, reduce air and water pollution, protect open space, and protect wildlife habitat and farmlands. It also ensures that environmental justice and equity are part of the decision-making process and gives all Californians the opportunity to know what is planned in their communities. Certainly, in the current political climate, we should be supporting as much environmental protection in California as we can, and as part of that, we should be supporting CEQA. Please oppose SB 827. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up some more cards here. Jim Morrell, Lori Brook, Kitty Lynch, Libby Benedict, Brian Pritchard. Please come on up.
This bill is an undemocratic power grab that overrides our local housing controls. I believe voters elected you to speak up when your power to act for our benefit is being challenged. Don't be fooled by the bill's amendments. Help for tenants during a 3.5-year relocation and right to return is simply underhanded. It will create a whole class of development refugees being shipped off to distant, unfamiliar communities. Let's create another Hooverville. Maybe Wienerville would be a good name. Our real housing problem is due to unregulated capital and speculation. We need sensible controls on both. We don't need an elected representative that goes to Sacramento and panders to special interests. Simply put, Cal Wiener's bill will gentrify and homogenize our city. Stand up for our city and join with others to support.
Ozzie Rome with No Neighborhood Council. SB 827 is a shameless land grab engineered by special interests who won't stop at anything short of selling the entire city to speculators. We keep hearing we need more homes, but why isn't anyone talking about the 30,000 new homes for which the city has already issued permits? Why is it that we let developers sit on issued permits if we have a housing crisis? This is the inconvenient truth about our housing crisis, which is really in reality, is the affordability crisis fueled by the speculative behavior. If Senator Wiener was concerned about our housing crisis, he would have proposed anti-speculation measure similar to what Vancouver has introduced. On December 21st, when the Planning Commission held an informational hearing on the Excelsior and Outer Mission neighborhood strategy, one person after another stood up to tell the Commission about their concerns about eviction and upzoning of the Mission. Supervisor Safai, what would you tell these people when they find out that it's not just the Mission Street corridor, but SB 8?
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Jim Morrell. I'm a 43-year resident. I've been a resident in San Francisco 43 years, and so I see that there's quite a housing crisis here. But still, I'm opposed to SB 827 for several reasons. Here's one. The bill does nothing to curb the rampant speculation that's fueling the housing crisis. And part of the problem here is the large amount of real estate investment by overseas investors, which seriously drive up the real estate prices. So I'm saying, why not follow the example of Vancouver, Canada, which is tackling the same problem with special taxing on non-resident owned properties and rental income. So other than that, the bill looks to me like a great deal for developers and does little to solve the housing crisis. So thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to call some more names here. Peter Warfield, Lorraine Petty, Chelsea Wong, Anastasia Yavanopoulos, Denise Zitlow, and Bradley Wiedmeyer.
I'm Libby Benedict, president of the Lone Mountain Civic Association. We represent about 500 homes surrounding USF in the center of the city. I'm also with my 5th generation Native granddaughter, Eloise May Perdue. This is her first community action. We understand that Senator Wiener is trying to disrupt the norm, but this legislation has so many unintended consequences to consider. Increased pollution, immense impact on infrastructure, displacement of low-income residents, especially the assault on neighborhood character, et cetera, et cetera. The Manhattanization of San Francisco should not be a foregone conclusion. We encourage you to oppose this measure, and let's work to find solutions that don't usurp local control and also don't destroy what makes us unique. This is the first time I've ever agreed with Aaron Peskin on anything. I'm glad to find common ground. Thank you.
Please come on up. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Lori Brook. I'm the president of the Cow Hollow Association, and thank you, Supervisor Peskin, for putting forth this opposition. The association does oppose SB 827 and supports the city's position, or hopefully what will be the city's opposition to it. I have to say that when I sent out, albeit late, I apologize to our members, notification of this meeting, within hours I had over 100 emails opposing it. It gave me great faith that once everyone does know what's going on in the dead of night while you sleep, we will have an enormous tsunami of resistance to this. So don't despair. I think we can get this solved. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Brian Pritchard, and I live in Noe Valley. I'm here today to ask you to support the resolution that calls for opposing SB 827, because we don't need another bonus for developers and speculators. It's outrageous for Senator Wiener to up the developers' profits tenfold without the slightest benefit to inclusionary housing. Supervisor Tang, your AHBP and Home SF legislation gave out more height in exchange for upping the inclusionary percentage to 30%. SB 827 has none of that, which shows the true motives of Senator Wiener. In my neighborhood of Noe Valley, average dwelling is no more than 1,500 square feet. This bill will up the ante to more than 10,000 square feet per lot, with no mandate for how many units should be built in that space. Multimillionaires will have the entire 10,000 square feet for their luxury single-family homes. Meanwhile, there will be more evictions, Ellis acting, and buyouts for tenants that make up 54% of households in my
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kitty Lynch, and years ago, someone told me that there was a plan in the city to build high-rises along Lincoln from 7th down to the beach. And I think that person had been channeling Scott Wiener. The city is already, this is my opinion, ruined in a way. Because the prices of homes and rents are so high, it restricts the population to rich people, and it's not very culturally colorful. This bill would kill any cultural flavor in the city that it has left. It makes me glad I'm old, and I won't be living here that long. My house will probably be demolished because it is on a popular transit line, and it's across from Golden Gate Park. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Tang and Supervisor Peskin. My name is Bradley Wiedmeyer. I support this resolution asking for us to oppose Senate Bill 827. It's bad policy. Look, if we want to see the state take over transportation network companies, the TNCs, how well is that working for us? Have we been getting across town a lot faster? I don't think so. We know best how to govern our own planning process. 827 will severely limit our ability for planning processes. And frankly, there are other ways that we can expand housing. We are in a crisis, but this is bad policy, this is bad civics, and this is bad democracy. And frankly, I'm a little bit disappointed in Scott Wiener pushing this through. It does have the appearance of some balances, but when you look, you could see that this is not going to solve.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Warfield, speaking as an individual and not in my library persona. I am a longtime resident of San Francisco and strongly oppose Senate Bill 827 and 828, and want to thank the supervisors and Supervisor Peskin in particular for bringing this opposition forward. Basically, I can say that I agree with pretty much everything that has been said by the supervisor and by the public. It cuts self-determination. Please go ahead and stop Scott Wiener's war on San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up some more name cards here. Renee Curran, Lori Liederman, Dennis Antonore, Nancy Werfel, who I saw already. I have two of your cards, Nancy. Jennifer Fieber and Tony Kelly.
Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Denise Zietlow, and I live in the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. For years, we've been hearing about a housing crisis, and of course, we've been feeling it. But instead of, this bill doesn't point to the culprit, which is the speculation, the high cost of living, and they try to call it a problem with the permit system. But in fact, it's really just an affordable crisis. I mean, I know of units in my neighborhood that have been empty for months. So there's housing, but people can't afford it. This is a boondoggle as far as I'm concerned, and I just urge you very much to support the resolution to oppose this bill that is only going to help the speculators and remove a good populace of the city that can't afford to live here then. Thank you.
I'm Lorraine Petty, a voter for 50 years, District 5. I support item 2. I vehemently oppose SB 827 along with SB 828. I believe together those two Senate bills would establish a state housing dictatorship of profit-taking. Just as the federal government is trying to dictate to San Francisco how we accommodate our immigrants, SB 827 and 828 attempt to let the state dictate how we accommodate the needs of our residents. I believe it should not be amended. It should just be thrown out altogether. I think you can put pink ribbons around a hydrogen bomb, but it still will blow San Francisco to bits.
Thank you. Again, I know everyone's very spirited about this, but I just have to remind everyone that there's no applause or booing or shouting or screaming in this chamber. Just use your spirit fingers, please. Thank you.
Good day, supervisors. I urge you to support this ordinance to oppose SB 828. The San Francisco Planning Department put it this way: the bill provides potentially huge additional value to property owners throughout the state without concurrent value capture. This bill wouldn't allow our local planning to take place concurrently or give a path for necessary studies and implement programs to capture appropriate level of the increased value for public benefits and impact mitigation at the same time as the intensified zoning is implemented. SB 827 is a speculator's dream and a tenant's nightmare. We'll get more market rate housing that's too expensive for us who live and work here, and little inclusionary or below market rate units. This will intensify displacement and incentivize speculation throughout our city. My home on a transit-rich corridor could be demolished.
Thank you. And I just wanted to announce that there is an overflow room that is open in room 263. So that is an option in case anyone wants to watch the hearing from there and come in when they were called to speak. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Wong, and I'm a longtime resident of the Mission District. I'm an artist who works in the city, and I'm also a tech worker. I just want to come here today and say that I'm opposed to the bill. It says that it's supposed to solve the housing crisis, and I just want to ask, what housing crisis and who is it going to solve? I currently think that the housing crisis is for working class people. It will displace working class people. There are currently on Craigslist 193 units of one-bedroom apartments in the Mission District, the first of which is $6,250 a month. The cheapest studio in the Mission District right now is $2,095 a month. I am a renter, and I'm one of the people that if I were to be evicted, there is no way that I would be able to afford a market rate house. Thank you.
Hi, Renee Curran, 25-year resident of San Francisco. I support the resolution to oppose SB 827. Scott Wiener is a smart man and knows how to write legislation that would protect vulnerable residents from displacement while accommodating newer residents, and yet he has written this developer giveaway instead. His EMB supporters have been spreading misleading propaganda that zoning is racist, which is an oversimplified, cherry-picked view of reality that exacerbates the mistakes of the past. I want the supervisors to consider that we're at a crossroads right now. You can choose already cleared path for speculation, which I can't read my own writing, or carve a new path leading to greater equity in San Francisco.
Good afternoon, Lori Lederman from the Inner Sunset. Please support this resolution opposing SB 827. SB 827 will not compel more density anywhere but in transit-rich areas. That means vast swaths of suburbs will not be subject to any new density requirements. Conversely, San Francisco has a target on its entire map for wholesale citywide rezoning with total disregard for decades of planning department work to accommodate growth within a framework that values historical resources, green space, walkable neighborhoods, and preserving small businesses. SB 827 by design eliminates all community input and the role of planning. It so favors unrestrained development as to silence all other voices. It eviscerates CEQA's role, disproving any alleged concern for the environment, and it fosters an accelerated feeding frenzy of speculators, further driving up land costs, thereby undermining affordable housing. The amendments offered by Wiener, ostensibly to protect current tenants from displacement due to this measure, are as telling as they are disingenuous. On their face, they acknowledge accelerate mass displacement.
Jennifer Fieber with the San Francisco Tenants Union. Where's Asha? We are opposed to 827 for the displacement effects that it's going to have on low-income tenants across the state. Park Merced has a right to return for tenants, but it's not working. We're seeing hundreds of eviction petitions preemptively before the demolition occurs. So lip service to tenants' protections is not enough. I ask that you push this resolution onto the full board. We deserve to get everybody on record for something so radical. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to call some more name cards here. Peter Cohen, Rich Shreve, Peter Papadopoulos, Marilyn Murillo, James Park, Hans Colby, Leslie Dreyer, Robert Fruchtman, Karen Kai, and Michael Sizemore. Please come on up.
Supervisors Dennis, Antonori, in terms of the affordability crisis, SB 827 actually is self-defeating. According to a study by the firm of Kaiser Marston commissioned by the city, market rate housing creates a demand for additional affordable housing. And so, and that may be up to about 30% according to that study. So even with our inclusionary zoning requirements in place, we are not gaining ground on the affordability crisis. In fact, it's getting worse. So for every market rate housing development, we have a greater problem with affordability. So contrary to trickle-down economics, more market rate housing means a worse problem for our affordability issue. Thank you.
Nancy Werfel again. I support the resolution from the Board of Supervisors to oppose SB 827 and 828. These bills are like an eminent domain confiscation of property for developers to achieve arbitrary housing goals without anyone's recourse to stop it. These bills support destruction of affordable housing without any regulation. People will be enticed to sell out or forced to sell out instead of helping them to stay here. San Francisco is really a great city because of its neighborhoods and its diversity, not because of its density. I think you need to make sure that we preserve what we have already and the quality of our life. Also, I would like to make sure that my beautiful historic craftsman-style house is preserved in the future for generations to enjoy, because if we don't do this now, it'll be torn down for its land value because the foundation will not support 5 new stories. Thank you.
Hello, Supervisors. Tony Kelly from Potrero Hill. I'm losing my voice, but thought it was important to come here today and speak on this measure, so thank you for having it. Supervisors, thousands of Latinos have been displaced from the Mission in the last 5 years. Thousands of those Latinos have moved to Bayview over in District 10. Our new neighbors in Bayview are now looking up 3rd Street and saying, oh, hell no, to the wave of luxury development headed their way from Dogpatch. That's happening today. 827 makes this problem worse. For SB 827, adding value to land is far more important than recognizing the value of our people. And in parts of the city with lower land values like Bayview and Visitation Valley, transit-rich, even when that transit is notoriously unreliable, these neighborhoods will be hurt first and worst by the law. 827 claims to limit demolition, but it rewards speculation. That's going to lead to more of the same problems we have on 3rd Street today: storefront vacancies, neglect, legal and illegal evictions. Please support this resolution and oppose 827. It's the wrong type of planning for District 10. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Tang, Supervisor Peskin, Supervisor Safai, pardon me. My name is Marilyn Merlo, and I live in North Beach. I urge support resolution opposing SB 827. SB 827, combined with President Trump's opportunity zones, will further displace low-income residents seeking affordable housing because developers could defer or eliminate their federal capital gains taxes on any projects in opportunity zones. In San Francisco, those include Chinatown, Soma, and Mid-Market Tenderloin. What this means is developers will receive large tax incentives to build luxury housing in Soma and Chinatown and Mid-Market Tenderloin neighborhoods, further gentrifying those neighborhoods and harming our most vulnerable residents that need affordable housing. I urge you to support the resolution opposing SB 827, and I would ask that we work with Senator Wiener to modify his bill to incorporate these concerns. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Fruckman of Alamo Square. I urge you not to pass this resolution. We've heard a lot about neighborhood character concerns. The character of a place is truly defined by the people who live in it. People increasingly cannot afford the Bay Area. What is our character if we stand by and watch our neighbors leave en masse because we are more concerned about architecture and buildings than the young people and family leaving our city? I left work to come here and point out the obvious. The status quo is not working. Not building housing has not worked. The plain fact is that San Francisco is unaffordable. Where will the children of our city live? What will the character of the city look like when only the wealthiest of the wealthy can live here? Will we actually have children in the future? None of these are answered by this resolution. I urge you not to pass it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hans Colby. I'm the chairperson of the Dolores Park Ambassadors Association. I urge you to stop the resolution that Senator Wiener has put forward. That we even need to discuss it in the committee first is astonishing. I have 3 points to make, and I hope I can make them in 1 minute. One is, this is a proposal that changes San Francisco for generations. We have a responsibility towards future generations to preserve San Francisco. We don't own it. We're the caretakers of the land. We don't own property. The property will be here for hundreds of years, and the hills have been here, and people have tried to raise them before, and the earthquake has stopped that, or money has stopped it. We need to stop that these hills and this city gets destroyed. The second one is a fundamental
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Karen Kai, appearing as an individual in opposition to SB 827. I've been working for over a decade now to preserve Japantown, and one of the products of that effort has been the JCHES, Japantown Cultural Heritage and Economic Sustainability Strategy. This document has been adopted by the Planning Department and the Board of Supervisors as a model that will help our neighborhoods continue to be able to accommodate growth while preserving our cultural and economic growth. This legislation will undo that, will override it. Please oppose it in any way you can. I'm a D8 resident. I've seen what follows, Supervisor Wiener, and it is not going to help our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leslie with Housing Rights Committee. We support your opposition to SB 827. I've been evicted twice in 2 years, and this is what happens when we build luxury-only housing. If we don't repeal Costa-Hawkins and put in anti-displacement measures and instead just build, we're just going to lose our working class, low-income, and POC populations. So we need to put in those measures before we consider any developer giveaways. We need 100% affordable housing before we even think of doing anything like this. So thank you, Peskin, for moving this forward.
Hi, I'm Peter Papadopoulos with the Mission Economic Development Agency, and I'm here to speak in support of this resolution to oppose SB 827. In agreement with many of the points made so far, we want to touch on a few key particulars about how this is not an equitable bill. Proponents want to say that this bill will somehow, this time it won't disproportionately affect our low-income communities of color because it's going to force certain less dense neighborhoods to build, to which we would say those areas already have comparable zoning that aren't building, so what would cause them to build suddenly now? Additionally, there's no value recapture in this, which doesn't take into account all sorts of things that aren't happening, including what's going to happen with traffic congestion on those corridors, because if we think that people are going to take that transit, more upscale people, that's mistaken from the data we're already seeing. And finally, it does penalize communities of color and our low-income communities that have
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Peter Cohen, Council of Community Housing Organizations. There's a lot of enthusiasm in this chamber for transit-oriented development, and unequivocally, affordable housing developers and affordable housing advocates have long been supporting transit-oriented development. That's actually how our housing works best. And the studies are very clear, both the environmental and social benefits of TOD. So that's not a trial here. The question I think you're hearing is, how does transit-oriented development get planned and facilitated? Is that a state function or is it local? I would argue that San Francisco has been a leader for years, if not decades, in very smart and very creative upzoning and value capture, whether it's Rincon Hill, Market Octavia, Eastern Neighborhoods, Home SF, Supervisor Tang, which got through unanimously. We know the examples, the Planning Department memo makes that clear. And other thing is, ironically, this may actually make it harder to get affordable housing sites because of the competition for sites. So I'd ask you to look at that particular issue and go slowly, please. Thanks.
I'm going to call up some more speaker cards here. John Barbie, Mari Eliza, John L. Cooper, Stephen Buss, Corey Smith, Laura Clark, and Norma Guzman.
Good afternoon, Supervisors, and particularly Kitty. I voted for you, and I'm asking you to please vote for San Francisco and oppose Senate Bill SB 827. I'll cut to the chase. It's not a housing bill. It's a real estate industry gift. Neighborhoods, small businesses will be driven out by high-rise rents, and national chains will win. 96% of the city can and will be laid waste, destroying our neighborhood character, the reasons that tourists come here. We're facing an infrastructure rate increase by the SFPUC of 40% over the next 5 years to maintain, not to accommodate the growth anticipated in 827. With 143,000 units in the pipeline, why do we need this bludgeon to the only compliant city in California to our RHNA objectives? Please oppose SB 827. My children are the 6th generation in California. I'd prefer they have a place to live.
Hello, I'm Michael Sizemore. I came to San Francisco because the Bay Area is the center of the renewable energy revolution in America. People who agree that density is better for the environment, the Department of Earth System Science at the University of California, Irvine, California Center for Population Research, UCLA, Yale School of Forestry, Energy Resources Group, and University of Environmental Law School, California, Berkeley, Sierra Club, Urban Land Institute, I could go on for literally hours. International people have seen density leads to more sustainability. Support SB 827. Anything else is climate denialism.
Blah, blah, blah. I've been to several hearings over the years through different departments, and the thing that really strikes me is this is San Francisco coming out. This is the Mission. This is Hunters Point. This is Noe Valley. This is Cal Hollow. I mean, these are San Franciscans that are really coming out to support this. This is a terrible, terrible bill, and it's going to KO us. You have to oppose it. But one thing I'd like to say is, if San Francisco was a woman, I'd call Scott Wiener a misogynist. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Wood for the Mira Loma Park Improvement Club, 400 dues-paying members, to support the resolution opposing Senate Bill 827. For us, we've always been strong on zoning conservation, but this is the overriding issue here is a state overreach into local municipalities, areas of governance, and it could be a really destructive precedent for all of the localities in California. So please support the resolution. Thanks very much. I turn this in somewhere.
Yes, you may. I've been calling up people who have already turned in speaker cards. I'm going to call up some more. Basil Aisha, Tom Hirschfield, Dennis Richards, Sarah Sherburne Zimmer, Connor Ryan. Please come on up.
Good afternoon, Mary Eliza here. I want to thank the two supervisors who are still listening to the public. I want to thank Aaron Peskin for bringing this forward. We do support the opposition to this SB 827, and as some people are mentioning, the cousin 828, which is coming up alongside of it. There's a lot that could be said here. I just want to deal with the fact that there's no effort to stop speculative behavior, which is causing the housing crisis and particularly the affordability crisis. So I believe that if the state wants to take on any powers from the cities, they should do it by dealing with the real problem, which is the speculative behavior, which is what's increasing the value of the land. I'm going to write a much more detailed letter. I have a very short one here I'm going to hand in some copies of, which for the supervisors who haven't gotten it yet. And please support Peskin's resolution. Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Barbie. I wanted to commend this resolution to oppose Senate Bill 827. I do think it's an attempt to rezone San Francisco, and I think it would incentivize speculative behavior. And as a founder of Liberty Hill Historic District 32 years ago, I would like to emphasize the impact this would have on historic structures, many of which are located along these transit corridors. We're an old city, and these are old transit corridors. The impact, the pressure it would put on old buildings would be unbelievable.
Good afternoon. My name is John Cooper. I've lived in Cal Hollow for 45 years, and I love San Francisco. One of the things that makes San Francisco wonderful and a wonderful experience to live in is the variety of communities and sectors. And this bill, in my opinion, will kill it. This is one size fits all. It's the state legislating zoning and planning for the city, and that's based on the assumption that the same zoning and planning concepts apply for Ukiah, that would apply for Santa Barbara, that would apply for San Francisco. I believe that this bill will increase density in San Francisco, will increase prices in San Francisco, and will decrease the participation by citizens in San Francisco of zoning and planning. I have been before the Planning Commission, and I am very much aware that these talented people take into consideration the unique elements of the
I'm Norma Guzman. I'm a lifelong brown woman and born and raised in California's farming communities. And many of my fellow brown family members suffer from asthma and other effects of dirty air that come from high CO2 emissions. And I strongly believe that Senate Bill 827 is going to promote cleaner air, cleaner communities for people of color, and it is going to improve walkability and our access to be able to come to democratic events like this, to come and be a part of decisions and feel enfranchised in our home state. Thank you.
Hi, Laura Clark, the Executive Director of YIMBY Action, a pro-housing organization with over 1,200 members. We launched membership about a year ago, and we're growing really fast. And we're growing fast because people are desperate and because the policies that have been outlined as being so wonderful for affordability are so obviously failing. We are failing to make San Francisco affordable for the middle class, for low-income people, for everyone. This bill offers the opportunity to create a genuinely dense, vibrant, affordable city for so many more people. And I have heard a lot of things here tonight about how people are worried about how many more people would join their community. And with strong tenants protections that have been added into this bill, we are seeing an amazing opportunity here to add a lot more people to our communities, and people who don't want to see new people joining their.
Thank you. And to the audience, please respect each other. We might have different opinions, but when you are speaking, I'm also going to tell everyone to respect when you're speaking. So let's stop the hissing, and you can use your spirit fingers if you'd like. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Hirschfeld, and I live in District 8, and I've lived in San Francisco for about 5 years. The Central SOMA plan that the planning department is probably going to put into law is going to add 50,000 jobs to the Central SOMA district in the city, and that's the equivalent of adding an Amazon HQ2 worth of workers with essentially no additional housing, or a marginal a marginal amount of additional housing. We need the housing. SB 827 is the answer to the Central SOMA plan for San Francisco. That's why I support SB 827 and why I oppose the resolution to oppose SB 827. Thank you.
Hello. Wait to reset the time.
Welcome,
Great.
Commissioner.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Richards. I'm here as an individual. I wasn't going to speak, but I actually feel very compelled to speak about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room was touched on by some other people. In our pipeline currently, we have 60,000 units. Under construction, 5,875, approved on individual sites but not being constructed, 17,000. A lot of those are entitlements being traded on the aftermarket. Approved master plans, 30,000, waiting infrastructure. Pending applications, 7,200. Existing zoning capacity, 67,600 units. ADUs in there, 16,450. Soft sites, 41,660. Those are developments that are 5% or less of their development potential. Home SF density bonus, 9,500. Proposed rezonings, 18,075. Add all this up, 145,500 units. Current capacity, 60,000 already entitled. Nobody mentions this. Why are we rezoning the city?
Thank you. Again, I'm going to have to ask that we hold your applause. Thank you. Next speaker, please. And I'm going to call some more callers here. Paul Wormer, Geraldo Cawthon, Victor Oliveri, George Williams, Bobek Esfandiani, Jeff Hodges, and Gen Fujioka. Please come on up.
Hello, I'm from Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco, where tenants fighting to stop rising rents and evictions, mostly of low-income communities. I love dense apartments in diverse neighborhoods. It's why I live in San Francisco, and I fight for stronger rent protections, and that's why I oppose this bill. We don't need more empty luxury housing owned by speculators. We need housing that's affordable to folks who live in San Francisco. We welcome people to San Francisco, and we fight for their rights to have affordable rents and live here. Why is no one demanding white, wealthy cities who want to put in headquarters of high-end jobs in white, wealthy neighborhoods? Maybe they should do their parts. Instead of just keep asking the densest city in the country to build more and to push out more of our elders and our neighbors and the people we love and make it so that immigrants won't have a space here anymore. Oppose this bill, please.
Hello, my name is Connor Ryan, and I'm here as an individual. And I am here to support the resolution to oppose this bill. Simply put, and many people have already stated many reasons, that this thing is a cookie cutter from hell. It's a monster. It's Scott Wiener's monster. And if this thing is allowed to live, it's going to turn San Francisco into San Fran Mar-a-Lago. And you can always find people to pay $200,000 to be part of your country club. But it does not address affordability. And it has a lot of contraindications, and it's completely ill thought up. So I support your resolution to oppose this bill. Thank you.
I have some documents for the record and the supervisors. Can I have the projector, please? Thank you. Hi, my name's Stephen Buss. I live in the Mission. I'm the organizer for Mission YIMBY. Everybody's talking about affordability, and we know that the most affordable kind of living is apartment living. So it's important to know where apartments are legal and where they're not in the city. On this red area, apartments are illegal under the current zoning, and you cannot build them there. SB 827 changes that and brings zoning equity to the city. Here we can see where apartments will be legal to build after SB 827 passes. And here we have a delta. How many floors will get added under SB 827? You can see very little effect in the Mission because it's already very dense. Where the big effect will happen is on the west side, opening this exclusive neighborhood, and the north side, opening these exclusive neighborhoods to...
Please hold your hissing. Thank you. Let's respect all the public commenters, okay? Or else we will stop this meeting. So let's continue so we can actually hear from the public. Thank you.
Supervisors, thank you. Todd David on behalf of the San Francisco Housing Action Coalition. So certainly there's a number of reasons that one can support this measure or one can oppose this measure, and I don't think that there's going to be a lot of mind changing going on right here. So I just want to talk about just some facts about this bill, just some facts. So we were hearing that it totally takes away local control. That's actually not quite true. It preserves setbacks, it preserves design standards, it maintains demolition controls, and it maintains inclusionary restrictions, the inclusionary affordability units. The planning department's report stated that this bill will result in more affordable housing units. More affordable housing units. Let's see, the other things that, and then, I just want to say this one thing. The number one contributor to greenhouse gases in the state of California is from exhaust, from drivers, from people commuting. Getting more people to be able to take transit to and from.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Paul Wormer. I want to thank Supervisor Peskin for introducing legislation or opposing this bill, SB 827. This is a bad bill for San Francisco and for California. I note people have talked about the importance of density and more housing. LEAD ND talks about a whole bunch of things related to that and transit. All this talks about is transit. None of the other supporting features for good walkable neighborhoods are a requirement. If you are doing low-income housing, you can be creating low-income ghettos with no services. More to the point, I've looked at this bill. I cannot find anywhere where it sets you must meet a certain density. You can use all of that FAR to do very large units in 9-unit buildings, which don't trigger inclusionary. And wow, you've got a height bonus for...
Hello, Supervisor Tang, Supervisor Peskin, and wherever Supervisor Safai is. My name is Bob Akisfendi. I am a resident and a citizen of this fair city like everyone else is here, no matter how long I've lived here or not lived here. I have a very simple story. I thought I'd have 2 minutes, but I have 1 minute. When I was in college, I was evicted. I was evicted going into my senior year from the home I was currently living in, paying $4,000 a month with 5 other gentlemen. And I was evicted because we were complaining about black mold that was in the house that the landlord didn't want to do anything about, so she just tossed us out. Tenant protections are important. Demolition controls are important. All the things that people raise as things to be worried about are important. But the biggest tenant protection we can have is the ability for me to be able to move to another unit that was the same rent, which is what I was able to do. We need to lower the market rate rents for everyone.
Thank you. I'm going to call some more names here. Jane Natoli, Aaron Van Devender, Sarah Carlson, Philip Levin, Joseph Christopher, Wei Jin Yu.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is George Williams. I'm a renter in the Richmond District, and I'm here to oppose the resolution to oppose SB 827. The worsening housing crisis makes me truly fear about my ability to stay in San Francisco, to live near my family, to live near my friends, and to keep calling this city my home. In California, we have not been building enough housing to keep up with our growing population, and the status quo is not working. The result has been devastating displacement, the loss of opportunity for young people, and a surging population of those experiencing homelessness. By failing to recognize the damage that decades of underbuilding and exclusionary housing policies have inflicted, we are failing to live up to our progressive values. I truly believe that SB 827 would be effective at addressing these challenges. It would result in many more homes built, including subsidized affordable homes. It does not change local affordable housing requirements and demolition controls.
My name is Jerry Cawthon. I'm a transportation engineer, and I just have a few things to add. Most of it you've already heard. I agree with all of the people here who support Supervisor Peskin's resolution and oppose SB 827. To be successful in the long run, a city has to stay balanced. In recent decades, because of an excess of development, it's already gotten out of balance, and this bill from Wiener would make it a lot worse. So as far as transportation is concerned, only about 15% of total trips are commute trips. So all those other trips are not commute trips. The thing that's not been looked at by those that say this will reduce congestion is the fact that we make most of our non-commute trips, even in San Francisco, by automobile or TNC. So that's a myth that this will somehow improve transportation. San Francisco is in danger of becoming a mini man. With the infrastructure 4 decades behind development.
Supervisors, Gen Fujioka, Chinatown Community Development Center. I have a letter here signed by 7 other organizations, affordable housing and tenant rights organizations opposing SB 827 and urging passage of the resolution. I want to address just 2 additional issues. There have been some very compelling testimony about how problematic this legislation is. 2 things I want to add. One, be very clear that this legislation undermines the city's affordable housing programs. as the planning department has indicated, because of the density bonus provision, which is mandated in here, instead of an 18% inclusionary housing, effectively we're going to have 13% inclusionary. It undermines Home SF, which would require 30% affordable housing. Thank you, Supervisor Katie Tang. And we want our San Francisco's affordable housing programs protected. This legislation undermines it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Hodges. I live over by 14th and Guerrero in the Mission. I'm one of those YIMBY Action members. I support SB 827 and oppose this resolution today. I've lost count of the friends who have fled the housing costs here. SB 827 would build the beautiful Paris-scale density that we need to bring down our astronomical rent with tenant protections. I want to ask some folks to stand up here today. I want to ask those folks who are working, and especially those who rent, but still manage to come out here today in support of SB 827 to please stand up. Thank you very much. I'm tired of losing friends like these. I'm tired of losing friends who just want to start a family. I'm tired of losing our senior citizens. I'm tired of losing our artists. I'm tired of losing our families. And I'm tired of the city's planning being co-opted by our landlords. San Francisco policy has failed its residents. With SB 827, we can build beautiful, needed density and heal the city. Thank you very much.
Oh. Does this work? Put that on. Okay. My name is Sonia Traus. I'm a renter in District 6 at 7th and Natoma Street. I support 827 and oppose the resolution opposing it, and I think it's important that the people that come out in favor of opposing 827 are homeowners, and some of them say that they're speaking for renters, but if you want to hear what renters think, listen to what renters say, and as a renter, I support 827. I want to talk about geographic equity. So District 6 is sort of roughly outlined here. This is a map of the Delta. How much would a lot be upzoned? District 6 is already upzoned. We built most of the housing, 60% of the housing in San Francisco in the last 10 years. We have to spread that housing growth all over the city. It's a matter of equity. So please, upzone the west side. This is a place where we could build a lot more housing. Thank you.
My name is Michael Bloom. I'm a renter in District 11. I'd like to speak first on behalf of some people in support of Senate Bill 827 who couldn't make it to this meeting today. Comment was scheduled during my son Merlin's nap time, so he couldn't be here today. My wife Hannah is watching him, and our housemates Kelsey, June, Anton, Zella, Elena, are all at work, so they couldn't make it to this meeting today. Between us, we managed to make enough to rent in San Francisco. We don't manage to put away any savings because there isn't enough housing in San Francisco, and so the market rates just keep going up and up and up. In particular, we would love to be able to live in places where we could commute more easily to our jobs. My housemate Elena has to drive down to the South Bay every day instead of being able to take Caltrain. And the kind of housing that would allow us to do that is not getting built, and we want that to happen. Thank you.
How does this work?
SFGov TV overhead, please.
What's that?
I'm a Tenderloin resident and a community organizer and volunteer with the Gloria La Riva for Governor campaign. Her campaign calls for guaranteed housing for all. Everyone knows what SB 8...
Madam Chair, I'm going to pause the speaker's time for just a moment to remind the speaker and other gathered members of the public that this is not a forum for electioneering for any candidates for any positions.
How much time do I have left?
You still have 53 seconds.
Great,
you can
thank you.
You can just speak to what your belief is on the resolution without the flyer.
Okay. Whether you support or oppose it, you know that this is just a gift to speculators and developers. And the only question is, what side are you on? Developers have already begun the process of destroying our city by displacing its poor residents and people of color. We need to remember that low income and affordable are not the same, and we need housing for everyone. I do not place hope in a legislative system which has already shown its willingness to bow to corporate money at the expense of the people of this city, but I do have hope in the people behind me, in the power of our collective voice to stand up. I want to say to everyone who is outraged about the way our city is being sold out that we need to stand up together, connect with each other, and protect each other, no matter what the actions of these politicians are. Housing for people, not for profit.
Hello, my name's Jane Natoli. Thank you for your time. I'm a renter in Inner Richmond, and I'm here with Grow the Richmond and YIMBY as well. I just wanted to say that I heard a lot of people so far talk about they've lived here 25, 35, 50 years. I want to be able to say that someday too, but that's a really tenuous position for me to be in as a renter in the Richmond. I really think we need to address the fact that we need more homes for people. We have an obligation to build more homes. We have chronically underbuilt for decades, and we're currently seeing the fruits of that situation. Unfortunately, so many of my friends can't be here today because they're at work. Thankfully, I have a job where I can get over here. Many of my other friends can't be here because they no longer live in San Francisco. They live in Brooklyn, they live in Minneapolis, they live wherever. I want to see those people be able to stay. I think we can do that. I'm here to ask you to oppose your opposition to 827. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Aaron Van Devender. I live in Russian Hill in District 3. We need more housing. We need SB 827. We need more housing. Where is everyone going to live? People are living in tents on the street. We need more housing. People are getting displaced. We need more housing. People can't afford the rent. More housing. Tenants have no options. We need more housing options. Families can't find any housing. We have an abundance of opportunity, but scarcity of housing. We need more housing. The city is not a museum. The building should serve the needs of the people who live here today, not those who were here 100 years ago. The status quo is starvation and death. We need progress, we need housing, we need SB 827.
Thank you. I'm going to call up some other names. Rex Salisbury, Sonia Traus already came up, Madiha Gori, Michael Branson, Noam Tai, Eric Brooks.
Hi, I'm Phil Levin. I'm a renter in the city of San Francisco, and I am speaking in support of more housing. I suspect fellow renters like me are underrepresented here because they have to go to work to make an income to afford the rents here. So I don't think this discussion is actually about us. This bill, SB 827, is not going to affect us on either side as much as it's going to affect the next generation. And we have a responsibility towards the next generation to build the infrastructure they need to live in the city. And right now we are failing to do that. So I hope my children will be able to live in the city and not just people whose parents happen to have a house here around the year 1970.
All right, let's respect everyone's comments. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Joe Christopher, and I'm a renter in Soma. I've lived in SF now for 4 years, and I really do love it here, but again, it's really hard to find places to have an affordable rent. I've heard arguments against SB 827, and I was surprised that there was a lot of people speaking up against displacement and keeping it affordable for everyone. I think what we can do is, with 827, all I see here is a math problem. We're just trying to solve that math problem. We need more housing for everyone to live with you. We don't want to hiss at you. We want to live with you. We don't want to ruin your quality of life. We want to work together with you and be part of your communities. So I think with both sides want clean air, want a good standard of living, we can work together to make sure this is implemented well and be a leader in a place that's dense and also has a good quality of life.
Thank you for your time. My name is Kevin Ortiz, representing the Latino Democratic Club. I'm born and raised in the city, second generation.
I'm also a tech worker, so I have to work with most of these people, unfortunately, on a day-to-day. But let's get back to the point. Currently, as it stands, SB 827 is extremely dangerous to neighborhoods that have major transit or even public transit within a half mile to quarter mile. As the bill stands, all of San Francisco will be enveloped by development. Let's focus on some facts. SF's numbers, according to the planning department, residents making $150K have increased by 150% since 2000, yet the number of people making under $40K has doubled. To Laura Foote Clark, what middle class are you building for? According to the Regional Needs Housing Assessment, SF has built over 2,000% of market rate housing, yet only barely has touched 40% of affordable housing. A common theme you're going to hear from the Yimbys is we need to build more housing at all types of levels. The numbers state otherwise. What we need is affordable housing. Giving a buyout to more investors, speculators, and frankly, the real estate lobby the Yimbys represent to build density in neighborhoods that have been decimated by luxury development like the Mission.
Good afternoon. I'm Rex Salisbury, a renter in District 3. I hope to raise my family here, and I think to do that we need more housing. Unfortunately, we've built very little over the past year. I'm here to speak in support of Senate Bill 827. I think it is a math problem. We've built 2,000 units or fewer over the last 30 years. I'd like to welcome new families, see my friends stay, and see San Francisco build a lot more units. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up some more names. Deepa Varma, Isaac Rosenberg, Tony Manzo, Caroline Bass, Ben Terrell, and Asum Takikaba.
Hi, my name is Michael Branson. I've had friends that have had a lot harder time finding rentable places than I have, but I want to offer my perspective. I moved to San Jose about 6 years ago and was lucky to rent at $18.50 a month. My wife started a job in San Francisco in the fall, and I followed her and started in January. We're excited to be working in the city, but I knew that we couldn't live in the city, so we really didn't even spend a lot of time looking here. I'm paying $3,000 a month in Oakland, which is almost twice what my rent was before. I'm lucky that I can afford it, but it does mean that I'm doing the commute. I'm living in a place that basically is what would be built under 827. It's a 5-story, 40-unit building that has affordable units. It's near BART, and I hope there's more opportunity for buildings like that in San Francisco. Thanks.
Hey, my name is Noah Tai. I'm a resident of Ingleside, and I'm speaking in opposition to this resolution in support of 827. The fact of the matter is there are more people who want to live in San Francisco than there are homes they can afford in San Francisco. And if we want, we can build more homes to enable that. If we don't want, if what we want is to not have more new people moving to San Francisco, that's fine too. China has this amazing system where they have municipal citizenship in addition to national citizenship, and they don't let new people come unless they've passed some sort of admission test. But I think we should welcome new people to our city because I like the city and I like new people. Thank you.
Eric Brooks, San Francisco Green Party, Our City SF, grassroots organization. I have lived in the city as a tenant for 24 years. In that 24 years, I have witnessed the demolition of this city, which is now becoming unrecognizable. And the reason that it is being demolished and becoming recognizable is that bills like this come up at the state and local level every couple of years. And when we flatly oppose them, we stop the destruction, but all too often we negotiate and talk about amendments to bills like this. That is not a solution. This situation has become so bad in San Francisco that we can no longer negotiate over bad bills like AB 827 and 828. Strongly support Supervisor Peskin's resolution. We've got to stop this jugular bleeding before it destroys the entire city.
Hello, Deepa Varma from the San Francisco Tenants Union, and a tenant myself representing 9,000 tenants in San Francisco. I would ask the tenants who oppose SB 827 to stand up. They all had to go back to work. There was many of us as well. And here's the thing. I love density. I love affordable housing. Affordable housing preservation is our mission statement. And what we do on a daily basis is fight to keep the diversity, the dense, diverse vitality of our neighborhoods. The thing is that this bill is not about affordability. It's about money. And if you want to help bring down rents, help us strengthen rent control. Help us beat back Costa-Hawkins. Don't be doing this. This doesn't help at all. What this does is it takes that power away from cities and it gives it to the state. It takes power away from communities, especially communities of color, and gives it to developers. It does nothing to actually to help with affordability. We know from all the studies that housing doesn't trickle down.
Good afternoon, Tony Manzo. I'm a Mission resident. I'm here to speak in support of SB 827. I think it's telling, seeing the people who are coming here speaking in opposition to 827, that they tend to be older folks, they tend to be wealthier folks. These are folks who probably bought their houses, full respect, who probably bought their houses in the 60s and 70s, and you want to maintain that snow globe. You don't want anyone to touch that snow globe. So I would ask that everyone take a step back tonight and think about, how do we include more people of color, more people of different income levels into our communities? How do we hold out our values to the world? How do we become more inclusionary? By inviting these people in and by providing housing. And I'd ask all of you to think about that tonight. I think that, as many people know, CEQA, historic preservation, those are all things that can be used to clog the process, and that's why the state, unfortunately, had to step in. Mr. Peskin is a landlord.
All right. Thank you. Let's direct our comments to the general public and not to an individual supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm a condo owner in the west side of the city, and why it's actually affordable is because it's high density and it's older, and so it predates the zoning laws. I would like to see many more apartments just like that in the west side, so other people, young families like me, can actually live in this city. And because of that, I support 827. When I moved to the city 12 years ago, the city council was really a leader in environmental policy, and I could see that this is no longer the case. This bill is clearly early in the democratic process and uniformly coming against something that vilifying something that we don't that hasn't quite gotten through the process yet is something that we all agree is something that we all hate in national politics right now. So when it comes to the argument of how much housing is enough, this is a regional problem. We really need regional leadership, and San Francisco should step back forward and be that regional leader to build more housing, to show what does that mean, because this is a regional problem, and that's where...
Hello, my name is Isaac. So I've lived here for 3 years, but it really doesn't take someone who's lived here at all to realize that this is the SB 827 is a logical solution to our problems. Back in 1956, when the Supreme Court ruled that redlining was illegal, that the U.S. government recommended that we switch to zoning laws, and now we are continuing that practice today, and that is a shame. So I urge you to support SB 827 and not oppose it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ben Terrell. I'm a renter, and I am not even middle income. I am here on behalf of the Redstone Labor Temple Association. I'd just like to say that I think we need to make it easier for nonprofit developers to help build housing for poor and working class people, and this bill goes in the opposite direction. It doesn't address that. And also, I've been hearing the rising tide lifts all boats since the 80s, and I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. And I think the math problem has to do with speculative capital and the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Asumu Tatikawa. I'm a renter in the Richmond district, and I'm with Grow the Richmond. So I'm able to live in San Francisco because I live in a 4-story multifamily apartment building that was built in the 1920s when apartment buildings were still legal in much of the west side of San Francisco. Today, my building is currently illegal to build because the parcel is now an RH2 parcel. And indeed, 72% of the city is now zoned RH1 or 2, which means that only expensive single-family homes can be built in these districts. I want to welcome more neighbors, more friends, and also more immigrants like myself into the city. But we can't do that if the West Side is only providing 1% of the inclusionary units in the city. The SF Planning Department says that SB 827 would increase affordable housing because we need to build more market rate housing in order for inclusionary requirements to kick in and actually build affordable housing. Please vote no on this resolution and support it.
Thank you. And I'm going to call up Max Guinness, Andy Mullen, Daniel Murphy, Brian Klofus, Milo Traus, and Ben Libby. Next speaker, please.
Okay, I'm back again to speak. I've listened to everybody so far. I'm back again to speak against SB 827. I'm a homeowner in Cow Hollow. We have opened up our home to for many years, renting out rooms in our house to students. We've never raised the rent. We've even taken in this year a homeless student, graduate student from Columbia, and refused to charge her any rent.
I'm sorry, ma'am, because you spoke earlier on this same item. I cannot have you come up again one more time.
I'm
Everyone
done.
has one opportunity. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Marlene Morgan, Venice Neighborhood Coalition. Venice neighborhoods are in favor of housing. We're building a lot of housing. Our height limits go from 130 feet to 240 feet. In my neighborhood, Cathedral Hill, in the last 3 years, we have approved over 1,000 units of housing. Half of them have been built, and if those have been built, are primarily market rate, and the rest of them cannot be built because they can't get the financing. So it's not just a question of permitting, it's a question of actually having affordable housing getting built. I oppose 827 and 828.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Corey Smith on behalf of the San Francisco Housing Action Coalition. I want to point out that according to the Chronicle, the top 3 mayoral candidates for the race in June have all committed to reissuing Mayor Lee's executive directive to build 5,000 new homes per year every single year going forward. That's about 3 times our current housing production. So the city's going to go through a lot of changes regardless of who we elect as mayor. Local control inherently, I think, is a conservative land use policy. It has gotten us into this mess. It has created what my generation is now dealing with. So we're facing the realities of those decisions. So when we continuously advocate for the status quo and not any sort of change, why would we think the results would be any different? As the Planning Department said, this will result in more capital A, subsidized affordable housing, as well over the long term, lowercase a, more housing that is affordable. And with all that's going on in the world, the politics of no, which has really captured this country, is really unfortunate. And I ask you to not say no to a solution. Let's work with the Senator and Assemblymember Ting to get this bill in a great place. Thank you.
I'm putting the projector on TV. Thank you. Hi, I'm Daniel Murphy. I'm part of Castro for Housing, and I'm also a member of YIMBY Action. So displacement is guaranteed if we don't build housing. That's just how it works. 75% of residents who move into new housing, which was found by a study done by the city, are people who come from the city. It's not like all new residents. It's people moving out of closets. Please support SB 827. This bill will lower rents for people in the city. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but the people speaking for this bill tend to be younger working class renters. And a lot of those people can't be here today just because it's a work day. I'm fortunate enough to be able to come here, but there's going to be a misrepresentation here. Thank you for your time.
Hi, supervisors. Thank you for your time. My name is Andy Mullen. I live in District 10. What we're experiencing here is a national housing crisis, and we're just a part of it. About 10 years ago, a large generation, my generation, left home and entered the workforce. And as a result, we are trying to house the 21st century population in the housing of only the 20th century. And what we've experienced as a result is like mass price increases and displacement. When I first moved here, which was quite some time ago, it was easy to find a studio in the Sunset for $900. That's not the case anymore. And it's because the population has grown, the jobs have grown without commensurate housing growth. Please oppose this resolution and support 827. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian Clofus. Supervisors, I just wanted to point out a generational divide that is very apparent here. 99% of the people supporting this resolution are 50 years old and older. Everyone that opposes this resolution and supports SB 827 is of the younger generation. The older generation doesn't want change. They already own their own homes. They don't want their views blocked. They don't want new people here. But the younger generation will prevail because we're the future of this country and the city. I've rented in SF for 10 years and will continue to live here far in the future. Please don't stand in the way of the future and oppose this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call some more speakers up. Mark McGranum, Daniel Murphy, Eric Dew, Mark Rannenberger. Please come on up.
Hi, my name is Ben Libby. I'm a second-generation San Francisco native. Exclusionary zoning is one of the single largest drivers of inequality in the country. It has fundamentally poisoned our economy. It's an incredibly good example of regulatory capture, which is a form of government failure which occurs when a regulatory agency tasked with acting in the public interest instead advances the commercial or political concerns of the sector it is tasked with regulating. If we are serious about reducing income inequality and making this a more equitable city for everyone, we need to support SB 827 and a more generous housing policy.
I'm Max Guinness, voicing my support for SB 827. Like many here, I've seen friends leave San Francisco or the Bay Area because of high housing costs, the direct result of insufficient development. I've also seen firsthand how more housing reduces rents. When I moved to SoMa in 2016, I paid 15% less than prior tenants, thanks to several new buildings opening up. I also know how the less fortunate experience the housing crisis. My brother uses a wheelchair following a childhood spinal cord injury, and now works in disability advocacy. Unable to drive or use stairs, his housing search was long and difficult, and he ultimately paid a high price for a new unit near BART. For him and many he fights for, San Francisco's old walk-up housing stock is inaccessible, and the car-centric sprawl of Bay Area suburbs is isolating. The modern transit-oriented housing that SB 827 will generate is not just preferable for people with disabilities, it's necessary for them to participate in their communities. I urge you to vote against opposing it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Milo Traus. My primary concern is displacement and access to opportunity. So there's a false dichotomy I've been hearing where it's either more housing or tenant protections, but we can have them both. And this bill actually has lots of tenant protections already that I think some people might not know about. And in fact, there's demolition controls, there's right to return that just came out last week, and we could even strengthen them and make it only single-family, owner-occupied buildings would be eligible for upzoning. How many people have a home and can think of 4 families that would be happy to live on top of them? It would be great to enable them to build those spaces. And some people said that more housing makes unaffordability, but higher wages is what cause unaffordability. So we're enjoying the high wages. We can harness them to build more units, and with the more units, more BMR units as well at the same time. So I think people who are against this fall into 2 groups.
Thank you. And I'm going to call the remaining cards: Brian Zake, Michael Bloom, Henry De La Vence, Charles Whitfield, Kevin Ortiz, and Eric Arguello. And if there are any other members who want to speak and are in room 263 in the overflow room, please come on over.
Hi, my name is Mark McGranigan from Potrero Hill.
I'm here to speak in favor of the bill and against the opposition. In the 8 years that I've been lucky enough to be in San Francisco, I've seen many friends and colleagues leave the city, and some refuse just even to come. They all leave because of the housing costs, and the housing cost is due to not having enough housing. This is a bill that gives us an opportunity to build much more housing in San Francisco, and that's why I support it. Thank you.
Hi, supervisors. My name is Mark Randenberger, and I'm a resident of Telegraph Hill in District 3. And I'm a renter. I'm not a native San Franciscan, and apparently in that city that makes me a second-class citizen. I work for a nonprofit that fights for common sense immigration reform and criminal justice reform. I don't make a ton of money. I don't work for a corporation. And it's really hard for me to live in this city with the rents the way they are today. And I think a lot of the other folks out here who are of my generation have expressed a lot of those same sentiments. I want to keep living here. I want our teachers to keep living here. I want our healthcare workers to keep living here, our firefighters, our police officers. And they're having to leave this city because the city has done nothing. While we are in an urgent housing crisis, people can barely afford to live here. Local control has failed. It's time to give the state a chance. Oppose this resolution. Support SB 827.
Hi, my name is Eric, and I'm from District 3. SB 827 would never have been drafted had neighborhoods evaluated proposed development on their merits for the good of the city, rather than gaming the system by using CEQA and other means to thwart the obvious development needs. Apocalyptic assertions of SB 827's outcome before it has even been tested should not be used as a basis for legislative deliberations. The Manhattanization of San Francisco is a problem, but it's a good problem to have. The alternative is the Detroitification of San Francisco. There is no middle alternative. You as legislators must look at the big picture, balance the onslaught of people and business coming into the city with the existing residents, but test out SB 827.
Thanks for your time today. I'm Brian, and I live as a renter in San Francisco's District 8. I urge you to support SB 827. It's time to start enacting policies that are actually progressive and help deal with the housing crisis in California, so that people like me can afford to stay and contribute our energies to making the Bay Area an amazing place to live for the next 100 years. This city has been blocking smart development for far too long, leading to a situation where it's illegal to build apartments in over 80% of the city. People like to talk about Hong Kong, a geographically constrained metropolis. But what about cities like Tokyo, Amsterdam, Beijing, and Seoul, where transit-oriented development and just more development in general have created livable cities where families, artists, and industrialists alike can afford to live? This is a simple cause and effect scenario. Increasing the housing supply helps ensure that good people, like the folks in this room, will not lose their homes simply because there are not enough areas and units to go around. It's a pragmatic first step in this direction, and you should not.
I would just like to ask that whoever's device is on, if you could turn that off. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. Hi. My name is Henry. I rent in District 6 because, unfortunately, I am unable to travel through time to 1980, where I might have been able to afford a home. And the reason that I'm able to be here is because my office is a few blocks away, and I can sit in the back and continue to work while I'm listening to the public comments. And I would like to question the legitimacy of a public comment forum that by design excludes people who are not able to do that. That's all. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Charles Whitfield. I'm a renter in District 6, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposal and in favor of SB 827. As previous speakers have shown, the housing that is most affordable, least damaging to the environment, most transit-friendly, and most conducive to a vibrant and active community is currently illegal in most of this city. We know that what the intent of this zoning code was when it was written. Whatever the intent of its defenders now, we know that the effects of this zoning code today are and have been to exclude those of lower income and communities of color from residence in this city. SB 827 is a part of fixing this problem going forward. It contains defensive measures to protect already vulnerable residents from displacement, but at its heart is also a proactive step to allow SF to become the city it should be, environmentally friendly and more affordable to both new and existing residents of all income levels. Please support SB 827 instead of opposing it. Thank you.
Hi, Rick Hall here. San Francisco must oppose 827. It's a gentrification machine on steroids. On SB 35, we went to Sacramento to get protections for gentrifying low-income communities of color. We had no leverage there because the city had, our own city, had already supported it. At least formal opposition by the city could provide some leverage that we need to improve this bill. But I must say, I don't think this bill can be amended to be acceptable. It's outlandishly broad, and its basis is unsound. One size fits all that impacts thousands of California neighborhoods across the state is just impractical and wrong. It's also, its fundamental basis of bus service is an unsound, shifting sand that can be manipulated. I want a picture of a bus that says, "I'm your bus, not your city planner."
Thank you. And if there are any other members of the public who wish to speak and I didn't call your name, please come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Argoy. I'm with Calle 24 Latino Culture District, and I'm here to support the resolution to oppose this bill. One thing that we have not talked about is what's going to happen to the low-income communities of color. You know, there's a lot of talk about communities of color, but there are no protections in place for us here in the Mission and for our culture districts throughout the city. And we haven't even talked about the small business that's going to affect. The Latino community will be coming out and expressing their feelings. We have not been invited to the table to talk about any of this bill, and I think you'll be hearing from us shortly. Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Contrary to the claims of Laura Foote Clark, given as you have already heard, San Francisco has built several orders of magnitude more over its RHNA quota of market rate housing and has severely underbuilt its low-income housing. What has not worked is the failure to build affordable housing with a capital A. Above all, for the homeless who cannot conceivably receive the benefit of the purported filtering that market rate construction will create, this will not work. And what it will do is make it far harder to build subsidized affordable housing by driving up land values, and will also encourage all sorts of chicanery to get tenants out in order to evade the right to.
Hi, my name is Jill Worley. A sweeping open development bill for San Francisco doesn't make any thoughtful sense to solve the housing crisis. We know this will result in a feeding frenzy for the developers, create luxury McMansions, and displace even more people to pave the way for market rate housing. This will not solve the affordable housing crisis. Please keep local control to solve this problem, not state control. Please oppose this bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalia. I grew up in San Francisco. I work doing eviction defense for African American senior tenants in the Fillmore Western Addition, and I'm here to speak against SB 827 and in favor of Peskin's bill. And I also wanted to point out that there should be some kind of protocol in the chambers for ageist comments coming from YIMBY. I think it's really inappropriate and should be not tolerated in the same way that other types of biased comments should be tolerated, because there is a homogenous population among YIMBY supporters that could also be called out very easily. And I just want to say that the housing crisis is an affordability crisis, and it will be solved not by building more luxury rate condos, but by expanding rent control, filling vacancies, and building.
Thank you very much. And are there any other members of the public who wish to comment on item 2? No one from the overflow room? Okay, seeing none, the public comment is closed. Thank you all for coming out. Supervisor Peskin, did you want to make any remarks first?
First of all,
and sorry, you are now replaced. You have now replaced Supervisor Safai, so he is now a member of this committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I really do want to thank all of the speakers. And I understand this is not just an intergenerational issue. The Bay Area, the entire state of California, San Francisco in particular, clearly have a profound affordability crisis. There's no question about that. You don't need to read the latest poll to know that that is on everybody's minds. It's real, and there are many ways to solve it. And as I spoke to earlier, we have collectively, over time, whether it's affordable housing bonds, accessory dwelling unit policy, tenant protections, home SF, have been chipping away at it. And we should also, everybody is entitled to their opinions, but as my former colleague, Supervisor Wiener, used to say, you're not entitled to your own set of facts. So when I hear speakers say that we've only developed 2,000 units over the last 30 years, that's patently untrue. It is true that San Francisco has actually been, albeit we could do better, been at the forefront of creating both luxury market rate units as well as more affordable units than any of our counterparts. And I actually appreciate the notion that Senator Wiener is coming forth with, which is that there should be housing equity around the region and around the state. But as that map shows, this doesn't quite do that. This actually rezones a very small part of the Bay Area. I was part of a movement, as were many of my colleagues, to encourage our neighbors to the south to use the Baylands for thousands of units of new affordable housing starts. That was something where the Board of Supervisors and the YIMBYs and our planning director all agreed. And I associate myself with the individuals who indicated that this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. I want to say to Senator Wiener and his colleagues in the state legislature the simple notion, which is show us the money. You want to help? Get us state resources. We were around when we used the redevelopment agency. Not as, the old redevelopment agency was the history of displacement, but the agency that was dissolved was actually an affordable housing agency. Give us those tools. Give us state resources so that we can use the properties that we have for 100% affordable housing projects. I think the YIMBYs and the older generation can all support that. I can say as a District 3 supervisor, virtually every single piece of vacant land, whether it was Broadway and Battery, Broadway and Sansom, Broadway and Front Street, that we all got after we tore down, thank God, the Embarcadero Freeway, we have repurposed for 100% affordable housing. We are looking to do that at the fire station, legislation that I introduced at 530 Sansom Street, which is a one-story with a mezzanine fire station where we could build 200 feet of affordable housing. We're looking at those opportunities all over the city. And as you heard from Commissioner Richards, there are tens of thousands of units in the pipeline. And to the individual who said, this takes time, that's a true fact. But I also wanted to, because much has been made of the Planning Commission's memo. There are actually two of them. The most recent, dated March the 8th, that addresses the Senate bill as revised. And there's a lot in there for everybody, but I just want to call out a few top line highlights, and then I want to go actually into some of the language of the legislation. I know this is a highly emotionally charged issue. I don't know how many people for or against Senate Bill 827 have actually read the legislation as amended, but to the Planning Department's memorandum, Senate Bill 827 may preclude the city from rezoning any property to PDR, production, distribution, and repair, in order to protect industrial districts and uses in San Francisco. I think that's important because planning has to be done holistically. The bill provides potentially very large increases in zoning and density without time or resources for cities to concurrently adopt measures to mitigate impacts. Senate Bill 827's definition of transit richness is broad, especially for corridors, and it goes on to speak to that. Tying zoning to transit service introduces substantial uncertainties over time. It's a memo worth reading. I don't think anybody here would say that our planning department is not pro-growth or pro-housing, so I commend that memorandum to you. As to the bill itself, and while I certainly appreciate the fact that Senator Wiener has now allowed in his amendments for local
This is a reminder to silence all electronic devices. Fire Commission regular meeting Wednesday, February 28th, and the time is 5:02. Roll call. President Ken Cleveland.
Present.
Vice President Stephen Nakajo. Commissioner Michael Hardiman. I'm here. Commissioner Francie Covington.
Present.
Commissioner Joe Aliotti.
tore people's lives and families apart, not only in San Francisco, but in urban areas around the United States. So Section 65918.8b defines eligible displaced person, and it goes on to say any person who occupies property that is located within the development and who will become displaced by the development. Any person who moves from property located within the boundaries of the development after an application for a development proposal subject to a transit-rich housing bonus is deemed complete. It goes on to say a development proponent shall prepare a detailed relocation benefits and assistance plan. This is supposed to make us happy. And submit that plan to the applicable local government for approval to determine whether the plan complies with the requirements of this section, which are as follows. A diagrammatic sketch of the project area, projected dates of displacement, a written analysis of the aggregate relocation needs of all eligible displaced persons, and a detailed explanation as to how these needs are to be met. A written analysis of relocation housing resources, including vacancy rates of the neighborhood and surrounding areas. Well, that's not going to be good news. A detailed description of relocation payments to be made and a plan for disbursement. It goes on to say after the applicable, this goes on for pages, but after the applicable local government approves the relocation benefits and assistance plan, the eligible applicant shall do the following. Notify all eligible displaced persons of the availability of relocation benefits and assistance, the eligibility requirements of relocation benefits and assistance, the procedures for obtaining such, the extent of their needs, supply each eligible displaced person information concerning federal and state housing programs. Well, great, that's really helpful. And it goes on and on. I mean, the eligible, and then here's the stuff that gets really disturbing. An eligible applicant's obligation to provide relocation benefits, this is the developer, and assistance to an eligible displaced person shall cease if any of the following occurs. An eligible displaced person moves to a comparable replacement dwelling and receives all assistance and payments to which he or she is entitled. That one sounds good. Number two, an eligible displaced person moves to substandard housing, refuses reasonable offers of additional assistance in moving to a decent, safe, and sanitary replacement dwelling and receives all payments. Three, the eligible applicant has failed to trace or locate the eligible displaced person after making reasonable efforts to do so. Number three, that is terrible. That is terrible. Number 4, an eligible displaced person from his or her dwelling unit refuses reasonable offers of assistance. Well, who's going to enforce that? You can read it, it's all set forth in there, but if the state wants to help cities with our housing and displacement crisis, we need to repeal Costa-Hawkins, advance split roll Prop 13 reform, reform the Ellis Act, create a vacancy tax, which I intend to propose for this November's ballot, continue to do the kind of work we've done to strengthen owner move-in eviction controls, and to do what we are going to do, and hopefully more robustly. I, for one, think that the Central SOMA plan needs to have more housing, not less. I think the 7,000 units proposed in that plan, and I've said it, this land use committee, is not enough. We have an unparalleled opportunity there to actually build tens of thousands of units of housing in the Central SOMA plan, and I hope we avail ourselves of that. Supervisor Tang, I hope that, I look forward to ironing this thing out with you, but I hope that we can work with Senator Wiener to make reasonable amendments. I think first and foremost amongst those is the fundamental notion of value recapture. And I think that we need to set some goalposts for Senator Wiener, Assemblymember Ting, Senator Nancy Skinner, and the entire Assembly and Senate delegations. And I think we need to put some mile markers out there. So I would hope that we can put forth a qualified opposition resolution saying that we are going to oppose it if we do not get substantial, meaningful amendments in the bill. And with that, I will relinquish the microphone.
Thank you, and thank you, Supervisor Peskin, for reading us Senator Wiener's entire legislation to us. I hope everyone read it before they came here. So I do actually agree with a lot of the comments that you made, Supervisor Peskin, and our public, and I want to thank you all for coming out. Again, no matter which side you are on, I actually see value in all of the comments you have made. I have proposed some amendments to the resolution. Instead of saying opposing, I would actually like to urge amendments to SB 827. I do agree that SB 827 does overreach in San Francisco. And I'm actually, surprised, but happy, I don't know how I feel, to hear some of the folks come out to say that they really appreciated Home SF, because they certainly didn't when I was working on it. But I hope you can see now that when I was working on it, I was actually trying to go for recapturing the value of these programs where, yes, we might give you 2 additional stories above existing high limits, but a lot of studies went into why we chose 2 versus, say, 10 or 9. The fact that we landed on a 30% affordable housing rate, we said no demolition of existing rent-controlled units and so forth, that all of those factors, and including small business, that was a first in the city. Where in Home SF, it is the only program in the city right now that has to do with any development of affordable housing or even market rate housing that says that you must take all these steps to actually notify, communicate with businesses that there are restrictions around lot sizes and mergers and so forth for storefronts on the ground floor. So I don't see any other programs actually doing any of that for small businesses. So yes, I'm very concerned that SB 827 does not take into consideration all those factors that our office, the Planning Department, Mayor's Office of Housing, Small Business Commission, OEWD spent over 2 years negotiating and trying to get through. I'm also, I just want to, help you understand also how much we have moved forward, because also when we passed Home SF, we had the 100% affordable housing program that we passed prior to that. And at that time, I wanted to eliminate the conditional use requirement for that program, and was met with a lot of resistance. And so to this day, we actually don't have a true 100% affordable program for under the density bonus where you don't have a CU. Actually, there is a modified CU for that. And so I would say that what we were trying to work on years ago was actually quite reasonable, because we actually wanted to, again, capture the value of all the benefits that we were giving to developers at that time. And so now here we are. I do think that SB 827 is a bit extreme for San Francisco. And so my amendments today, again, since this bill is in the process of it hasn't gone to committee yet and can still be amended, I wanted to urge amendments to SB 827. to ensure that the value of additional height and density is recaptured and that San Francisco's existing affordable housing programs and existing neighborhood character is preserved. And so again, while I do respect Senator Wiener and all of his work locally and at the state level, this particular bill, though, is troublesome to me. So some of the other clauses that I have here I just wanted to share with the public is that San Francisco has spent years working with communities on long-range planning efforts, resulting in value capture for affordable housing, transportation, and infrastructure impacts. Also, the Board of Supervisors is committed to working with other jurisdictions, affordable housing, and tenant advocates to address the state's housing crisis by amending SB 827. And then in the further resolve clauses, I also wanted to urge our state leaders to actually fund affordable housing streams to address the housing crisis. As we all know, that funding is a huge challenge. And that the last clause I have here is that the Board of Supervisors will continue to monitor the progress of SB 827 and may provide additional comments, I'm sure we will, as the bill is heard at committee hearings. So that is my proposal to Supervisor Peskin. I think at the heart of it, we do agree that amendments need to be made to SB 827, but of course, it'll get down to the wordsmithing here. Supervisor Peskin, do you have any comments, thoughts?
So, Madam Chair, as much as I would like to send a strong message to Senator Wiener and our state delegation, I think you've articulated that very well, and in the spirit of trying to work collaboratively, I would like to do a couple of things. One is, and I suspect we're getting the senator's attention at this point, and by the way, if anybody wants to see our emails, I think we've gotten hundreds and hundreds of emails in opposition, and I would say less than the number I can count on my hand in support. But we heard from a diversity of people today, and by the way, these are not form letters. They are from the heart. I mean, it's rather remarkable, and I can say for the record that my office did no organizing on this, so I think this has touched a nerve. Having said that, and given the fact that I think we have an opportunity to negotiate with our Senate representative from San Francisco, what I would like to do is to send this to the full board as proposed by Chair Tang with recommendation, but set it for a hearing on April the 3rd, long before it's going to get to committee in the state Senate, and reserve my right, depending on what happens in the intervening 3 weeks, to move my position at the full board to an oppositional or a conditionally oppositional position, depending on what we see from Senator Wiener and Assemblymember Ting in the next 3 weeks. So I would support it with those caveats for hearing at the full Board of Supervisors on 3 April 2018.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Peskin. I think that sounds great to me. So we'll shoot for an April 3rd full board meeting hearing on this resolution with the amendments that I proposed. Okay.
So the
And we
proposed
haven't-
amendments are your amendments, and the recommendation to the full Board of Supervisors for April 3rd is a motion by Supervisor Peskin.
So I will move the amendment, send the item as amended with recommendation for hearing on 3 April 2018.
Thank you. And we will do that without objection. All right. Mr. Clerk, are there any other items before us today?
There is no further business.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
My name is Naomi Kelly, and I'm the City Administrator for the City and County of San Francisco. It is my honor to be here today. We are finally in the home stretch of seeing this Moscone expansion project completed. So it's my honor because I am with two of the departments that oversee this project, the Convention and Facilities and Department of Public Works, all report up to the city administrator. And also, as we have a representative on the Tourism Improvement District, which was very instrumental in forming with the hotel community and SF Travel to create this district that provided the self-assessment that's paid for by the visitors of San Francisco to finance this project. And it's very important to the city in San Francisco. It's an economic engine, and we're very happy to be here today for this topping out ceremony. When I look at the crowd today, we will be doing the finishing touches and signing this beam later on once we get through this program, and we'll be able to put our signatures on it, all of us. Get the fattest pen out there so you can write your name in big, so it can be like John Hancock, so that we know one day you can tell your family and friends that your signature is in this building. And so up next, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Mark Farrell, to give a few words.
Thank you, Naomi, and good morning, everybody. I am incredibly excited to be here today. As someone who remembers Moscone Center being constructed over 30 years ago as a child here in San Francisco, to celebrate now the topping off of the new and improved Moscone Center, it's an incredible honor to be here. You know, what we are doing here today is celebrating an event that will keep San Francisco at the forefront for conventions, for visitors, for our tourism industry. And again, over 30 years ago, this center was constructed. And to think about what it has meant for our economy here in San Francisco, for our businesses, large and small, is truly incredible. And what we're here today celebrating, in my mind, is the future of San Francisco. This is the future. Just look around you. Just look at all of the construction that is happening, all the crews that are working as we speak right now. We had a choice. Moscone Center, as the years went on, was getting smaller compared to the conventions that were coming to San Francisco, smaller compared to some of the conventions that were being diverted to other cities. And we had a choice, and we decided to make the investment. The voters decided to make the investment in a new Moscone Center. So what we're doing today is celebrating the future of San Francisco, the future of our workforce, the future of our economy, the future of our tourism industry, the future of our city, and that is exactly what we should be doing. This new Moscone Center is expanding our convention space by over 21%, which is unbelievable. The technology that is going to exist within these walls, and I had a chance to see a preview of that, is unbelievable. Will make truly for a 21st century experience. You think about the streetscape and the sidewalk improvements that will be happening for pedestrians that will finally be able to once again walk through this street just by the end of this year is going to be unbelievable. And we did this as well. We are going to be the highest